Remember that asteroid that wiped dinosaurs off the face of the Earth? Brace yourself, we might witness a similar scenario in our lifetimes. And this time, the consequences might even be more catastrophic. There's just one tiny difference. This new asteroid is likely to smack into the moon. No, this is not a sci-fi scenario anymore. There's this asteroid called 2024 YR4 that scientists say has about a 4% chance of hitting the moon in 2032. So what do we do? Try to gently shove it off course or blow it up? A bunch of researchers, including people from NASA, dug into this and suggested several options. Their worry is real. If that rock hits the moon, it could kick up a massive cloud of debris, and this cloud could spike to as much as 1,000 times normal levels for a few days. That's not just messy, it could endanger astronauts and satellites in low Earth orbit. One obvious idea is to nudge the asteroid so it misses the moon. Another is a full-on breakup. Basically, a deliberate explosion. Experts use a clever term to describe it, a robust disruption. But nuking an asteroid is totally untested. Nobody has ever done it before, and it carries huge risks. You could create a bunch of smaller but more dangerous fragments, or do something unexpected that can make things worse. In any case, the idea is out there for scientists to chew on. Now here's the backstory. 2024 YR4 was first spotted on December 27, 2024, and reported to the Minor Planet Center. That's the official hub that tracks all new asteroids and comets. Pretty soon, it showed up on NASA's Century Impact Risk Table, which is like the agency's watch list for any asteroid that could potentially hit Earth. For a little while, things looked sketchy. Out of 37,000 plus known large asteroids, YR4 was the only one with a real chance of smacking into Earth anytime soon. Its odds even climbed to a record 3.1%.
That might not sound like much to such amateurs as me and you, but in space terms, that's huge. Scientists were really paying attention. Luckily, after a few more months of better tracking and sharper observations, they nailed down the asteroid's orbit more precisely. Turns out its path isn't taking it anywhere near us after all. Its chance of hitting Earth has dropped so low it's basically zero now. So, we can breathe out and relax. Earth is safe. But the moon? Maybe not. And that's why researchers are now debating whether to blow the thing up before it ever gets close. The thing is, asteroid 2024 YR4 is pretty big. Based on what the James Webb Space Telescope saw, it's about 220 feet long, roughly the size of a 20-story building. Not exactly a pebble, I'd say. At first, NASA thought there was only around a 1.7% chance that YR4 would crash into the moon. But then, the Webb telescope checked again in March, and that number jumped to 3.8% right away. By May, it climbed once again. It was already sitting at about 4.3%. In other words, the more they looked, the more likely it seemed that this space rock might actually hit our natural satellite. On the bright side, these new observations helped NASA figure out where exactly the asteroid would be on December 22, 2032, with about 20% better accuracy. Now, if the asteroid really did smash into the moon, NASA says it wouldn't mess with its orbit or make it wobble or anything dramatic like that. But, and this is a very big but a hit from something that large would kick up a ton of debris, and that flying space junk could become a real problem for satellites orbiting Earth, or even for astronauts on the International Space Station. That sounds alarming enough. That's why the story might take a turn straight out of a sci-fi movie. Scientists are seriously considering blowing the asteroid up. But unlike in a movie, this isn't about saving Earth this time. The most extreme idea is to launch a bunch of nuclear explosives at the asteroid before it reaches the moon. The thinking is, if they can blow it to pieces while it's still far away, the debris will scatter safely into space instead of causing problems near Earth. But of course, there's the catch. While scientists know roughly how big YR4 is, they don't know exactly how much it weighs. And that's a huge problem. Without knowing its mass, space agencies can't design a precise mission to knock it off course. In theory, they could send out a reconnaissance spacecraft first, something to get close to the asteroid, measure it up, and figure out the best way to push it away. But researchers say there just isn't enough time. By the time we'd collect all the needed data and build the right hardware, it'd be too late to intercept the asteroid before the 2032 impact window. So instead of a gentle space nudge, some experts suggest going full Armageddon-style, that very robust disruption. Translated into human, it's blasting the asteroid apart with nuclear explosions. Sure enough, this idea comes with a massive risk. What if the explosion accidentally changes the asteroid's path and sends some fragments toward Earth? The researchers admit it's a possibility, but still think nuking it could be the most practical solution, given the circumstances. If the mission ever happens, it would need to launch sometime between 2029 and late 2031. This would give it just enough time to reach and intercept the asteroid before it gets too close to the moon. Now, nuking space rocks might sound over the top, but NASA actually has some experience with asteroid defense. Back in 2022, they pulled off something groundbreaking with their Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART. That mission was all about proving that humans could physically change an asteroid's path without using explosives. NASA launched a small spacecraft in November 2021, and after almost a year of travel, it crashed head-on into a tiny asteroid named Dimorphos at about 14,000 miles per hour. The idea was simple. If you hit an asteroid hard enough, you can slightly change its orbit, just enough to make it miss Earth someday. And it actually worked. The test showed that even a relatively small spacecraft could make a serious difference. Now, the European Space Agency wants to double-check exactly how much of an effect that crash had. In October 2024, they launched a follow-up spacecraft called Hera from Florida's Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Hera's on a 2-year journey to reach Dimorphos and its bigger partner asteroid, Didymos. By October 2026, Hera will enter orbit around the asteroid pair and start collecting data, basically checking NASA's math. ESA scientists hope that once they analyze the impact site, they'll find out how effective DART was at changing the asteroid's trajectory. If it turns out that kinetic impact, aka smashing a spacecraft into an asteroid, works well enough, future missions might use that technique again. Maybe even for YR4, if it ever becomes a real threat. But if it doesn't, that's when the nuclear backup plan might come off the shelf. Either way, scientists are making sure that if a space rock ever threatens Earth or the Moon, humanity will have more than just a Hollywood script to rely on. By the way, people at NASA run what-if asteroid exercises every 2 years to get scientists, state agencies, and international experts on the same page. During such asteroid drills, experts pretend that a giant space rock is heading our way. Then they work through all the tricky questions they can come up with, like how big is it, where might it hit, what should we do? It's like a massive brainstorming session to make sure that if this ever happens, we won't be starting from scratch. To make these scenarios feel as real as possible, NASA's Center for Near-Earth Object Studies gets involved. These are the folks who track real asteroids and calculate their orbits. So they simulate months of asteroid observations, complete with uncertainties about its size, trajectory, and potential impact zones. No one knows exactly how big the asteroid is or where it can hit. It's the kind of uncertainty that makes decision-making way harder, just like it would be in real life.
Way out by Saturn, there's an icy moon called Enceladus. And it's literally spitting out ice into space. And that ice contains the stuff life's made of. Oh, and there's a whole ocean hiding under the ice. And who knows what's living in it. Enceladus is only about 300 miles across. It could literally fit inside the state of Colorado. But even though it's super small, it's got liquid water, energy from hydrothermal vents, and a bunch of chemicals that could actually support life. In other words, it's one of the best spots in the solar system where life could exist. Now, rewind about 20 years. NASA's Cassini spacecraft flew by Saturn and noticed something strange. Enceladus was shooting out little jets of icy particles from cracks near its south pole. Later, scientists realized those jets were coming from a giant underground ocean beneath the moon's surface. When they analyzed the frozen grains from those plumes, they found almost all the elements needed for life: carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and phosphorus. Only sulfur was missing. The only problem was, most of those samples came from Saturn's E ring, a huge ring made of dust and ice that surrounds the planet. And those particles had been sitting out there for decades, maybe centuries, meaning they could have been changed by space radiation. So no one could say for sure if those life ingredients really came from Enceladus itself. But now that's changed. A new study has just confirmed that fresh ice grains, the ones newly blasted out from Enceladus, contain organic molecules, including stuff like nitrogen and oxygen. Here's how scientists figured it out. In 2008, Cassini flew right through one of those icy geysers, and it literally got splattered with tiny particles. They hit the spacecraft's dust detector at insane speed, 11 miles per second. That's fast enough to separate all the molecules, so the team could see what they were really made of. Then the scientists used a technique called mass spectrometry and managed to study those fresh grains in detail. They found molecules that on Earth are part of certain chemical reactions. Those build the complex structures life needs to exist, including ones that may contain nitrogen and oxygen.
One of the researchers said that this likely proved that those complex organic molecules hadn't formed in space. They might have actually been coming straight from Enceladus's ocean. Another scientist explained that those molecules could play an important role in biological processes. All this means that Enceladus might really be habitable. But even if there's no life there, that's still a big deal. Because then we have the right to ask, wait, why isn't there life when all the right conditions are in place? The story doesn't end there. The European Space Agency is already planning a future mission to actually land on Enceladus, right at its south pole. They want to scoop up more samples and see what's really going on under all that ice. The launch is planned for sometime in the early 2040s, so in just a few decades, we might finally find out whether this tiny frozen moon is home to some bizarre life forms. But Enceladus isn't the only potentially habitable place we know about. Admittedly, the others are beyond the edge of our solar system. Like 3 possible super-Earth planets orbiting a nearby orange dwarf star. Now, super-Earth is just what scientists call planets that are bigger than Earth but smaller than the icy giants like Uranus and Neptune. Scientists from the University of Exeter found that those exoplanets were orbiting their parent star, HD 48498, which sits about 55 light-years away from Earth. That's practically our cosmic neighborhood. Each of these planets takes a different amount of time to go around its star. One needs 7 Earth days, another 38 days, and the last one 151 days. And the coolest thing is that the outermost planet might actually be hanging out in the star's habitable zone. That's the sweet spot where it's not too hot and not too cold for liquid water to exist. It means the planet's surface could be comfortable enough for water to exist without boiling or freezing. This makes it a great candidate for life as we know it. Over 10 years, the team collected nearly 190 super precise measurements using cutting-edge equipment that looks at the light coming from stars. By checking whether the star's light is slightly shifting toward us, this is called blue shift, or away from us, that's red shift, they can figure out if a planet is tugging on it. The host star itself is an orange dwarf, something like our Sun's smaller and calmer cousin. It's similar to the Sun in many ways, but as an orange dwarf, it gives off less radiation than our yellow dwarf star does. The coolest part is that this is one of the closest planetary systems we've ever found that hosts a super-Earth in the habitable zone around a Sun-like star. Now, super-Earths aren't exactly rare. Scientists have found over 6,000 exoplanets since the first one orbiting a Sun-like star was confirmed in 1995. To spot such distant worlds, astronomers use all sorts of tools, like NASA's Kepler telescope, launched in 2009 to find Earth-like planets in the Milky Way. Let's sneak a peek at some of the most exciting exoplanets out there. Gliese 667 cc is only 22 light-years away, even though that's still about 129 trillion miles from us. It's about 3.8 times the mass of Earth, and zips around its red dwarf star in just 28 days. So a year there is 13 times shorter than ours. Its red dwarf star is cooler, and the planet probably sits in the habitable zone, though occasional stellar flares could give it a sunburn. Kepler 22b is way farther out at 600+ light-years. It was the first Kepler planet found in a habitable zone. It's about 2.4 times bigger than Earth, and we still don't know if it's rocky, liquid, or gaseous. Its orbit is close to Earth's, taking 290 days to circle its G-class star, smaller and colder than our Sun. Kepler 69c is a whopping 2,700 light-years away. This planet is almost 70% larger than Earth. Its orbit takes 242 days, putting it in a Venus-like spot in its system. But since its star is only 80% as luminous as our Sun, the conditions on that planet might be way friendlier than those on Venus. We discovered TOI 733b in 2023. This world is about 245 light-years away. It orbits its star super fast, taking just 4.9 Earth days. But the coolest thing is that it might be completely covered by a massive ocean. Could there be life in that ocean? Time will tell. GJ 1214b is 40 light-years away, pretty close by space terms. The planet is almost 3 times Earth's diameter and 8 times as heavy. It needs 38 hours to orbit its red dwarf star. The surface temperatures there hit 450 degrees Fahrenheit, and with all that heat and pressure, water behaves in crazy ways, like hot ice or superfluid water. By the way, that superfluidity is wild stuff when water moves like magic without friction. But don't try it on Earth. You'll just get dehydrated. Proxima Centauri b is the closest super-Earth, sitting at just 4 light-years away. It has a similar mass to Earth's, but a year there is only 11.2 days. Its star even wobbles a bit thanks to the planet's gravity. That's actually how scientists discovered it. The planet sits in the habitable zone but gets blasted by extreme UV radiation because it's super close to its star. Right now we can't even study its atmosphere. And finally, TOI 715b. This one orbits a red dwarf, which is smaller and cooler than our Sun. These tiny stars are pretty great for finding habitable worlds because planets can orbit close without frying. TOI 715b may have once had a super thick atmosphere like Neptune's, but it might now be losing it. Scientists need more research to see if it's now a watery, rocky world. In any case, some of these planets might have oceans, some might be way too hot, and some could even be our distant cosmic cousins. Either way, each discovery helps us understand the universe a little better. And who knows, maybe someday we'll even set foot on one of those super-Earths.
This is a typical crater on the Moon. It's here because, once upon a time, an asteroid crashed right into it. Yep, a lunar crater forms when an asteroid, meteoroid, or a comet slams into the Moon's surface. And as you can see, it's happened a lot. But one crater formed in a very different way. But then, how did it form? Well, let's rewind a bit. There's a widely accepted hypothesis that the Moon itself is a product of collision, just like all these craters. But that collision was way, way tougher. It happened over 4.5 billion years ago when a huge Mars-sized planet called Theia crashed into Earth. That event threw a bunch of debris into orbit. Eventually, it came together to form the Moon. Now, for a while after that, the Moon was basically a giant ball of lava. But because the early Moon was very close to Earth, our planet's gravity kept squeezing it, making it even hotter. In the end, though, the Moon drifted farther away, cooled down, and formed a rocky crust. Now, moving on, About 4.3 billion years ago, an asteroid the size of a small country, like Nepal, way bigger than the one that wiped out the dinosaurs, slammed into the moon's far side. It left an enormous crater called the South Pole Aitken Basin. It's up to 5 miles deep and about 1,500 miles wide. For comparison, that's roughly the distance from New York to Dallas and deep enough to swallow Mount Everest. Now, scientists think that impact may have dug up and scattered some ancient stuff from deep inside the moon. A mixture of materials nicknamed creep, short for potassium, rare earth elements, and phosphorus. It's like a chemical time capsule from when the moon was still a lava ocean. Now, you want to know the reason why this area could be even more scientifically interesting than we realized? You see, until recently, researchers believed the asteroid came from the south, slamming upward and spreading a bunch of radioactive material, that very creep, around the crater's northern rim. But after looking closer, scientists realized the impact actually came from the north, which means all that valuable creep ended up on the southern edge instead. And guess what? NASA's Artemis 3 mission happens to be targeting that exact southern region. Researchers started questioning the old southern impact theory when they compared the moon's crater with others across the solar system, mainly Mars's Hellas Basin and Pluto's Sputnik Basin. Here they are. See? All three have this bizarre teardrop or avocado shape, wide on one side and pointy on the other. And exactly that pointy end usually shows which direction the asteroid came from. In the case of the South Pole Aitken Basin, that means the asteroid hit from the north, not from the south. To confirm it, scientists dug into old data from NASA's Lunar Prospector mission. It orbited the moon in 1998 to 1999. That spacecraft measured radioactive elements on the surface and found high concentrations of thorium, a key part of creep, around the basin's southwestern rim. Now, the Artemis 3 mission is NASA's big plan to put humans back on the moon for the first time since 1972. If everything goes according to schedule, the launch is set for mid-2027, right after Artemis 2 wraps up. See, Artemis 2, which is supposed to launch before April 2026, will be sort of a dress rehearsal. Astronauts will orbit the moon without landing just to make sure that all the systems work smoothly, a cosmic test drive. Artemis 3 is where things are going to get real. The astronauts are expected to land near the moon's south pole, in one of 9 possible locations NASA has scouted out. The only problem is timing. Artemis 3 has already been delayed a few times, and so has Artemis 2. Artemis 1 launched in 2022. It was an uncrewed test flight that went around the moon and came back just fine. So, next up is Artemis 2, which will take real astronauts further into space. Then comes Artemis 3, the big one. Astronauts are supposed to hang out on the lunar surface for about a week doing sciencey stuff before heading home. After that, Artemis 4 and 5 will build and expand a new mini space station orbiting the moon. It's called Gateway. Think of it as a pit stop in space. Astronauts can dock there, live for short missions, do experiments, and prepare for landings. NASA's building it with help from the European Space Agency, Japan, and a few others. The astronauts are going to travel in the Orion spacecraft, launched by NASA's Space Launch System, a massive rocket taller than the Statue of Liberty and strong enough to fling people to the moon. To actually land, they'll use the Human Landing System. SpaceX's Starship is supposed to take the first cruise down to the moon's surface once it proves it can land safely. In the long run, NASA's not going to stop at the moon. The big goal is Moon to Mars. Hopefully, we can use everything we learned from Artemis to build a lunar base and eventually send humans all the way to Mars. And who knows? Maybe when people land on the moon, they'll be able to figure out another unsolved mystery: flickers, glows, or beams of light that sometimes illuminate our satellite. Let's dig deeper into this mystery, shall we? On the night of April 19, 1787, Astronomer William Herschel spotted something weird, a bright light glowing on the dark part of the new moon. It shone for hours and was almost as bright as the Orion Nebula. What he saw probably was what scientists now call a transient lunar phenomenon, or TLP. Basically, quick little flashes or color changes on the moon's surface. TLPs can look like glowing patches, reddish or purple spots, or even hazy clouds that suddenly appear and fade away. Over the last 2,000 years, people have recorded around 3,000 of these strange moon flashes, using telescopes, cameras, or sometimes just their own sharp eyes. So, what's really going on up there? Well, there's no single answer. Lots of different things can cause TLPs, from meteor impacts to gas releases or even electrical activity. The length of the flash, which can last anywhere from a split second to several hours, gives scientists clues about what's behind each mysterious lunar light show. The super short flashes lasting less than a minute are most likely caused by tiny space rocks crashing into the moon. Even a meteoroid, the weight of a billiard ball, can hit the lunar surface hard enough to make it glow for a split second. The heat from the impact makes rocks shine and then quickly fade as they cool down. For a long time, scientists suspected these quick flashes were caused by meteor hits, but they couldn't prove it until the 1990s, when high-speed cameras finally became common in lunar research. Even then, it wasn't easy to confirm. Short flashes could have just been camera glitches or electric noise. The only way to be sure was to catch the same flash from 2 or more places at once. Well, that happened for the first time during the Leonid meteor shower in 1999, when scientists recorded real impact flashes on the moon. Later, we got more proof that the moon was often peppered with space rocks. While the flashes seemed to cluster in certain areas, like Oceanus Procellarum, one of the moon's big dark plains, that's likely just because of where scientists have focused their cameras. A 2024 study showed that meteoroids actually hit the moon evenly everywhere. Now, flashes that last a few minutes are probably caused by something totally different: gas leaks from inside the moon itself. Studies from 2008 and 9 found that when gas like radon builds up under the lunar surface, it can suddenly burst out. Hey, I know how that feels. And when this radioactive gas escapes and decays, it gives off a faint glow we can see from Earth. Interestingly, those glowing spots often line up with areas where scientists have already found higher radon levels. Then, there are the long-haul lights. They stick around for hours, like the bright glow William Herschel saw back in 1787. A 2012 study suggested those could actually be caused by solar wind, a stream of charged particles coming from the sun. When that solar wind hits lunar dust, it can charge up the particles and toss them into the air, well, into space, creating massive dust clouds up to 60 miles high. These floating clouds might bend or reflect light from stars or planets nearby, making it look like the moon itself is glowing. So hopefully, we'll get the answers once the Artemis mission lands and starts its exploration. Hey, I can hardly wait. A mysterious space visitor has recently passed its closest approach to Earth, flying by at a distance of 64 million miles. It might be something totally natural and born on the outskirts of the solar system, or some unknown civilization could be examining us from above right at this moment. This new object looks a lot like another strange wanderer called 3I Atlas, and you'll understand why we say strange pretty soon. So, could both of them come from the same place outside our solar system? What we do know is that this new object is relatively close to us, in space terms of course, and scientists are now studying it closely. They first spotted it inside our solar system, and people are paying attention because it showed up not long after 3I Atlas passed near our Sun. On November 2, 2025, astronomer Gennady Borisov, the same person who discovered interstellar comet 2I Borisov in 2019, found this new object. It's now got its official name, and is listed in NASA's and the Minor Planet Center's databases. C-2025V1 has some unusual features. Its orbit is tilted 113 degrees, which means it's moving almost up and over the regular path that planets take. Even more bizarre, its orbital plane is almost at a right angle to the path of 3I Atlas. Plus, it doesn't have a clear comet tail, which is odd. Right now, its orbit has an eccentricity of 1.0095. And let me break it down in human language. If that number was well above 1, it would mean the object definitely came from outside the solar system. But because it's only just a bit above 1, the most likely explanation is that C-2025V1 came from the Oort cloud. That's a giant faraway shell of icy objects that surrounds the solar system. Now scientists checked this by basically rewinding the object's path, sending it all the way back to about 1,000 AU. That's 1,000 times farther than the Earth is from the Sun. At that huge distance, the planets can't mess with its motion anymore. When they redo the orbit from that point, its eccentricity, the number that tells you if it's from outside the solar system, usually drops below 1, which means it's still part of our solar system. But at the same time, even a tiny push from Jupiter while passing by could make even a normal Oort cloud comet look like it has an eccentricity slightly above 1. And on top of that, small blasts of gas coming off the comet's surface can also change the numbers a little. So, to put it simply, it probably isn't interstellar. It just looks that way because of small pushes and gas bursts. C-2025V1 is still exciting, even if it comes from the Oort cloud, because studying it gives us a chance to analyze the material from that distant region and learn how our solar system formed and evolved. Now let's get back to the mystery of 3I Atlas. Before anything else, let's explain what 3I Atlas actually is. It's most likely a comet, basically a huge, dirty snowball flying through space. You can't see it with your own eyes or with a regular telescope. But there's good news. A powerful telescope in Italy is streaming it live for free. So anyone can actually watch this mysterious object as it passes by. Scientists think this comet weighs about 33 billion tons. That number is hard to imagine, so here are a few comparisons. The Eiffel Tower weighs around 10,000 tons. So 33 billion tons is the same as a whopping 3.3 million Eiffel Towers. And if you decide to compare the space visitor to buildings, 33 billion tons is about the same as the weight of several huge city areas made entirely of steel and concrete. But even all that size isn't the wildest part. Some experts think this object might be a piece of unknown technology from outside our galaxy. And they're not saying this just for fun. There are real reasons behind the theory. 3I Atlas was first noticed in July by NASA's Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, or ATLAS. Shortly after, NASA confirmed that the object wasn't from our solar system at all. It's an interstellar object, only the third ever discovered. The first one was Oumuamua in 2017, which looked long and flat and didn't behave like a normal rock. The second was Comet BI Borisov in 2019. Now we have 3I Atlas, and it is enormous compared with the other two. Its nucleus is up to 3.5 miles wide, while Oumuamua was only about a quarter mile long, and Borisov was around a half mile across. Besides being huge, 3I Atlas is unusual in several other ways. As it moves through the solar system, it's releasing massive amounts of carbon dioxide and gas. This suggests that 3I Atlas is 3 to 5 orders of magnitude, which means 1,000 to 100,000 times more massive than the other two known interstellar visitors. Such an enormous difference is a real scientific mystery. It's also traveling incredibly fast, about 150,000 miles per hour, which is almost 200 times the speed of sound. And unlike objects in our solar system, which followed curved paths because of gravity, 3i Atlas is moving on a nearly straight line. That alone makes it stand out. These odd behaviors have led some researchers to consider a pretty unexpected idea. 3i Atlas might be a probe sent by another civilization, possibly to study Earth. According to this theory, the object could be a sign of some kind of intelligence from beyond our solar system. Why do they think this? Well, because the object's movement doesn't match what you'd expect from something controlled only by gravity. It also passes close to Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, and these are the planets that might be especially interesting for an outside civilization to observe. Another very unusual feature of 3i Atlas's path is that its orbit is tilted only a little compared to the plane of the solar system, about 5 degrees, and it moves in the opposite direction to most planets. This feature might allow the object, or its creators, to take extremely precise measurements of planets, things like their orbits and sizes, to plan a perfect flight route through the solar system. And if 3i Atlas suddenly changes direction at some point, that could mean it's using a built-in engine instead of simply drifting through space. Now, new photos have also shown that 3i Atlas has at least 7 jets blasting material into space, some shooting in totally opposite directions. Now, if this thing is just a normal comet, it would have had to lose a huge amount of its original mass when it passed near the Sun, way more than just 10 to 20%. Only some of that material would actually push the object in one direction, so the total amount blown off would need to be massive. If that's what happened, then there should be now a giant cloud of gas and dust around 3i Atlas. And if that cloud exists, it'll be pretty easy to figure out what the comet is made of. The James Webb Space Telescope will check this when 3i Atlas gets closest to Earth on December 19, 2025. But if 3i Atlas is not a normal comet and is actually some kind of technology, it wouldn't need to lose that much material. Engines built by an advanced civilization could give it a boost while using way less gas because they shoot it out way faster. Faster exhaust gives more push with less fuel, so a technological object wouldn't need to blast away big chunks of itself the way a natural comet would. So, to sum it up, there's still a big mystery around 3i Atlas. Could it really be a technological mothership that released small probes into the inner solar system? But C2025 V1 doesn't fit that idea, unless one of the objects used some kind of engine. The closest their orbits ever come is about 46 million miles, and the two objects themselves were never closer to each other than about 140 million miles. The tiny non-gravitational push detected in 3i Atlas is nowhere near strong enough to close this gap. So, C2025 V1 is almost certainly not one of the mini probes people imagine 3i Atlas might have released.
There's a mysterious dent in our planet's magnetic field, and it's slowly growing. It stretches from South America to Africa, and what's horrifying is that it's weakening Earth's protection shield against the Sun. They call it the South Atlantic Anomaly. And while most people on Earth don't feel its effects for now, satellites and spacecraft passing through it already do. Deep inside our planet, there's a giant ball of molten iron and nickel, the outer core. The metal inside is so hot that it's constantly moving and swirling. This movement creates electrical currents, and when electricity flows, it generates a magnetic field. This field surrounds the entire planet like a protective bubble. Without it, life on Earth would be in serious trouble. The Sun blasts out charged particles called solar winds that could destroy our atmosphere over time. Luckily, the magnetic field deflects most of these particles, keeping us safe. Other planets without magnetic fields like Mars lost their magnetic fields, got their atmospheres stripped away, leaving them dry and lifeless. And also, without the magnetic field, our technology and equipment gets all messed up. Satellites, power grids, and even airplanes could get hit by intense radiation. This would lead to communication failures, GPS errors, and blackouts. And now, something strange has been going on underneath the African continent. An enormous blob of dense rock deep inside the Earth, called the African Large Low Shear Velocity Province, has been growing and messing the magnetic field up. Scientists think that this weird rock-like thing is messing with the flow of the outer core, disturbing the magnetic field above it. That disturbance is what weakens the shield over the South Atlantic. It's like a crack in a windshield. It might not shatter immediately, but the weak spot spreads over time. Now, NASA is watching it closely. Satellites passing through this anomaly experience random glitches and shutdowns. Sometimes their circuits short-circuit from high-energy solar particles. Mission operators have to turn off systems before entering the danger zone, and it's only getting worse. The anomaly is drifting westward. This means that new areas could fall under its influence. What's even worse, it seems like it's been splitting in two, which means our planet has been developing two weak spots instead of one. And here's something crazy. Some scientists believe that this entire thing is part of a long-term cycle that's been repeating for over 11 million years. And that cycle would make our magnetic poles flip. North could literally become south, and vice versa. Earth's magnetic poles have flipped before, although the last time that happened was 780,000 years ago, way before humans started roaming around the planet. These reversals happen every few 100,000 years. Now, some wonder if our anomaly is the beginning of the next flip, but scientists aren't sure if we're overdue or just in a temporary phase. Luckily, if a flip were to happen, it wouldn't be instant. It would take thousands of years. But as the field weakens, more radiation would reach Earth's surface. It would mess up not just technology and equipment, but also us, and even animal migration patterns. Many animal species use Earth's magnetic field to navigate. And they even have some potential culprits that could have caused this weird thing. There are two massive, mysterious blobs of hot, dense material deep inside our planet. One is under Africa, and the other formed under the Pacific Ocean. They're called large, low-velocity provinces. Basically, huge underground rock-like formations. Both blobs are gigantic. Each one is hundreds of times taller than Mount Everest and stretches across thousands of miles. They make up 6% of the entire Earth's volume and are one of the biggest geological features inside our planet. They're also super weird and could be structured more like trees than some lumpy mountains. Scientists imagined them as softened rock at first, but based on recent imaging techniques, it looks like they might actually have jagged branch-like structures extending upward. These are like branches of a tree. They could be feeding hotspot volcanoes at the surface, like the ones in Hawaii. Scientists still don't know exactly what these blobs are. However, they believe they control a lot of what happens on Earth's surface. Stuff like volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and, of course, changes in the magnetic field. They may also be linked to supervolcanoes and mass extinctions. The eruptions that they could cause could be like the ones that happened in ancient times and possibly wiped out entire species. If the blobs are connected to supervolcanoes, they might have had absolutely insane disasters in the past and might even cause more troubles in the future. But they also help us control plate tectonics, which affect earthquakes and mountain formation. They might also contain material from Earth's early days, or even from Theia. That was the mysterious planet that crashed into Earth and helped form the Moon about 4.5 billion years ago. Finally, Earth literally breathes because of these blobs, which is insane. The Sun and the Moon's gravitational pull stretches the Earth slightly, making it rise and fall like a breath. But now, scientists found that this tidal movement is slightly off-kilter over the blobs. They literally interfere with how the Earth's mantle moves. These two huge structures actually actively affect how our planet behaves, which is super dangerous. We only recently learned how these blobs actually appeared on our Earth. It's all because of the sunken ocean crust. Over hundreds of millions of years, parts of the ocean floor have sunk deep into the Earth's mantle. These slabs of rock stacked up at the bottom. This way, they slowly formed these massive blobs of recycled crust. Scientists haven't agreed on whether the blobs are heavier or lighter than the rest of the mantle. One study suggested they are denser, which would mean they're made of heavier material. Another study suggested they are less dense, meaning they could be hot, rising plumes of lighter rock. The African blob is suspected to be one of the causes of the South Atlantic anomaly, but scientists are still investigating how exactly they are connected. Since the African blob is basically a giant dense blob sitting on top of the outer core, it could cause troubles. The African blob is hotter and possibly chemically different from the surrounding mantle. It could be disturbing the outer core, affecting the magnetic field, weakening it. Another crazy thing is that they might contain an ocean of water locked inside their minerals. Scientists discovered that huge amounts of water, as much as all of Earth's oceans combined, are trapped in minerals deep in the mantle. One mineral, ringwoodite, can store water inside its crystal structure, but it's only possible under extreme pressure and super hot temperatures, like in the deep mantle. So there could be vast hidden water reservoirs inside the blobs. Not literal bodies of water, of course, but tons of little water molecules weirdly locked away deep beneath the surface. If this water were somehow released, it could potentially trigger massive volcanic activity, or even affect global climate. But the blobs are not the only factor for this weird anomaly. Other factors also contribute, like the tilt of Earth's magnetic field, changes in the core's iron flow, and even plate tectonics. However, the large provinces are making things worse. They keep evolving somehow. Scientists think that it might be because massive columns of hot rock called mantle plumes are rising from deep inside the Earth. These plumes could be pushing the giant pieces of Earth's crust like tectonic plates around, especially in the Pacific Ocean. If this is true, then these giant underground blobs aren't just sitting still. They're moving, changing, and shaping the Earth's surface all the time, almost like they're alive. So what does this mean for the future? If the African blob continues evolving, the South Atlantic anomaly might get larger or shift further, affecting more satellites and spacecraft. Right now, there are still more questions than answers. Every new data point helps predict how it will evolve and whether we need to worry about the worst-case scenarios. For now, NASA isn't panicking, but they're watching very closely. Because whether it's a harmless shift or a sign of something bigger, one thing is clear: something deep inside Earth is changing. It was supposed to be an easy 8-day-long mission. 2 NASA astronauts couldn't even imagine they would get stranded in space for at least 9 months. Their task was to test a brand new spacecraft, Starliner. They were hoping to return it to Earth as soon as possible so engineers could check it out and send it on a new flight. But from the very start, it didn't go as planned for Butch Wilmore and Sunita Williams, experienced astronauts who had both been to the International Space Station before. They were supposed to depart on the 6th of May, 2024, but had to postpone departure for 1 month because of a leaky valve in the upper stage of their rocket. When they finally took off on the 5th of June, new problems started before they even got to the station. There were failures in some of their thrusters and, later, leaks in the gaseous helium. It's important because it keeps the thrusters pressurized. Boeing, who built the new spacecraft, and NASA focused on solving those problems and figured out it wasn't safe for the astronauts to fly back home on the Starliner. They didn't just leave them on the ISS, of course. NASA came up with a plan where Butch Wilmore and Sunita Williams would come back home on a SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft. It took off in September of the same year with 2 empty seats out of a total of 4. The only problem is that it wasn't supposed to come back until February 2025 at the earliest. In a press conference from the International Space Station, Wilmore and Williams admitted it was heartbreaking to watch their spacecraft depart without them, but they were trained to expect the unexpected. They keep receiving messages of support from Earth, and they aren't at all sad to spend more time in space, as they say it's their happy place. Mr. Wilmore gets up every day at 4:30 in the morning, and Miss Williams at 6:30. They do at least 2 hours of exercise at the space gym every day to reduce the loss of bone density. Another big problem is sleeping in space. The space station has 6 tiny sleep pods, each about the size of a phone booth. Inside, there's a sleeping bag, a little storage area for snacks and personal stuff, and even 2 laptops attached to the walls with bungee cords. The pods aren't completely soundproof, so astronauts sometimes wear headphones to listen to music or calming sounds from Earth to help them fall asleep. But here's the problem. There are more astronauts than sleep pods, so 3 astronauts have to find other places to sleep. One of them sleeps in a simple backup sleep chamber inside the European Space Agency's Columbus lab. Butch Wilmore is roughing it in just a sleeping bag inside the Japanese Space Agency's lab. When they planned this mission, Butch was only supposed to sleep like that for 8 days, which didn't sound that terrible. Another problem they had to deal with was that they didn't pack enough clothes for several months. So, astronauts had to savor what they brought for the first 2 months until a resupply vehicle delivered fresh outfits, along with hardware, fruits, and vegetables. The astronauts have a super packed schedule that's managed by a computer tablet. It tells them what tasks to do, when to take breaks, and even when to eat, all in 15-minute chunks. A little red line on the tablet moves through the day in real time, showing them if they're on track or running behind. At first, Butch and Williams were working on the Starliner spacecraft, testing all its systems like communications, life support, and power. Once they finished that checklist, they started helping the other crew members with science experiments and maintenance tasks. The best-case scenario is now a late March return, and if it actually happens, the Starliner crew will spend over 270 days in space. An average mission on the ISS lasts around 6 months, so it's already way longer, but not close to the record time. The current American record belongs to astronaut Frank Rubio, who stayed in space for 371 days in a row. He lived on the International Space Station from September 2022 to September 2023. When Frank first went to space, the plan was for him to stay there for about 6 months, but it didn't go as planned. In December 2022, a meteoroid, or maybe a piece of broken satellite junk, crashed into the spaceship that was supposed to bring him and his 2 crewmates home. The spaceship was damaged so badly that it wasn't safe to use anymore. The 2 astronauts who were on that spaceship also had to stay on the ISS with Frank for 6 extra months until another spaceship went to space and rescued them. During his mission, Frank Rubio zoomed around Earth about 5,936 times. Altogether, he traveled a distance of 157 million miles. It's like going to the moon and back 328 times. Frank also went on 3 spacewalks and spent 21 hours outside the space station. One of Frank's big jobs was to do scientific experiments. He studied how bacteria behave in space, where there's no gravity pulling things down like on Earth. But his favorite experiment was taking care of a tiny tomato plant and watching it grow. Frank admitted that being away from his family for so long was really hard, but it's not the only possible hardship on such an extended space stay. Space agencies have entire departments that study the effects of space on the human body. In one of the studies, called Twins, scientists compared two identical twin brothers, Scott Kelly and Mark Kelly. They're both astronauts, but for this study, Scott spent a year on the ISS and Mark stayed on Earth. By comparing them, scientists could figure out how space changed Scott's body compared to his twin. He said it took him at least 6 months to feel like his usual self again after coming back to Earth. Scientists noticed predictable weight loss and bone mass loss, but they didn't expect to see changes in his DNA. They found that his telomeres, which are like tiny protective caps at the ends of DNA strands, got longer while he was in space. But sometime after he got back, he had more short telomeres than before. It looks like the damage was permanent. It must have to do with radiation, which is one of the biggest dangers for astronauts who stay in space for a long time. It can damage DNA, and that can increase the risk of some really serious health problems. Astronauts need protection from radiation, not just while they're flying in space, but also if they live on the Moon or Mars someday. Scientists are working hard to find ways to keep astronauts safe from this invisible danger. Every space agency has rules about how much radiation astronauts can safely handle during their careers. Another big problem astronauts face is bone demineralization. It happens because there's no gravity in space pulling on their bones like there is on Earth. Without that pressure, their bones start losing minerals like calcium, which makes them weaker. Astronauts can lose about 1 to 1.5% of their bone density every month they're in space. When calcium from the bones gets into the body's waste system, it can lead to kidney stones. Because of these changes, astronauts coming back from space need time to recover. Another challenge in space is how the body's fluids, like blood, behave. On Earth, gravity keeps most fluids lower in your body, but in space, they float upward. This extra fluid in the head can push on the eyes, which might change how astronauts see. Some even develop a condition that can make it hard to focus their eyes, and sometimes the changes in vision can be permanent. When astronauts who spend a longer time in space, like Williams and Wilmore, return to Earth, doctors keep a close eye on their health with regular checkups. Scientists expect that their condition is going to be like that of 6-month astronauts.
A huge asteroid, several hundred feet across, is dashing towards Earth through the black nothingness of the cosmos. Ooh. Brace for the terrible news. There's a 72% chance it might hit Earth in 14 years, with potential impact zones being North America, Southern Europe, and North Africa, some of the most densely populated areas on the planet. Astronomers have been keeping a close eye on the space invader for a few months, but now it's moved too close to the Sun, and tracking it is impossible for the next 7 months. Of course, there's a 28% chance that it will miss our planet altogether. But what if it doesn't? Global devastation and destruction, that's what. Thousands of lives lost, billions and billions of dollars in damage, entire species wiped off the face of the Earth, ruined cities and towns, destroyed fields and forests. We're left wondering whether it's the future awaiting for us. Well, now you can breathe easy. That's just a hypothetical scenario created by NASA to prepare for a situation like this. The space agency has been thinking about this kind of disaster for years. Even cooler, they run what-if asteroid exercises every 2 years to get scientists, state agencies, and international experts on the same page. The last one occurred in April. Over 100 people took part in that event. During such asteroid drills, experts pretend that a giant space rock is heading our way. Then they work through all the tricky questions they can come up with, like how big is it? Where might it hit? What should we do? It's like a massive brainstorming session to make sure that if it ever happens, we won't have to start from scratch. To make these scenarios feel as real as possible, NASA's Center for Near-Earth Object Studies gets involved. These are folks who track real asteroids and calculate their orbits. So they simulate months of asteroid observations, complete with uncertainties about its size, trajectory, and potential impact zones. It's the kind of uncertainty that makes decision-making way harder, just like it would be in real life. Now, if an astronaut really was aiming at Earth, it wouldn't be just one country's problem. It would be everyone's. That's why this exercise brings in international experts. In April, it happened for the first time. They worked alongside U.S. agencies like NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office and FEMA to understand how the world might respond to such a crisis, since an asteroid impact would have dire consequences globally. Now, the big question is, can we actually stop an asteroid from hitting Earth? Here, there are two main options experts consider. First, we could send a spacecraft to gather more info. If we knew more about the asteroid's size, mass, and orbit, we'd be able to make better decisions about what to do next. The second option is to try to deflect it. Basically, it means bumping the asteroid off its course so that it misses Earth. This might sound impossible, but NASA's DART mission has already proven that we can do it. 2 years ago, they crashed a spacecraft into a small asteroid called Dimorphos and successfully changed its orbit. It was a huge victory for planetary defense. But missions like that take tons of time to plan, prepare, and carry out. That's why spotting dangerous asteroids as early as possible is so important. Currently, NASA is working on a new telescope called NEO Surveyor, which is set to launch in 2027. Unlike good old telescopes, NEO Surveyor is designed to detect even the trickiest asteroids, including ones orbiting close to the Sun. It'll give us a better chance to act early and potentially stop an asteroid before it becomes a threat. If you still think that an asteroid impact is something out of science fiction and the threat isn't real, how about this? Early on Sunday, January 21st, a small asteroid about 3 feet wide entered Earth's atmosphere and luckily burned up over Germany. NASA's Scout Impact System spotted it 95 minutes before it hit and predicted exactly when and where it would arrive. At 1:32 a.m. local time, the asteroid turned into a blazing bright fireball, visible as far away as the Czech Republic. Some small meteorites might have landed near the impact site, about 37 miles west of Berlin. This is just the 8th time ever that an asteroid has been detected before it hit Earth. It's a splendid example of how tools like Scout are helping us track asteroids and prepare for anything bigger that might come our way. Here's another example. A small asteroid turned the skies over northeastern Siberia into a breathtaking light show on December the 4th, burning up harmlessly in Earth's atmosphere. The space rock, about 28 inches across, was spotted just hours before it hit. Thanks to observations from astronomers around the world, a special alert system managed to predict the impact to plus or minus 10 seconds. The asteroid entered Earth's atmosphere at 1:15 a.m. local time. The authorities were put on alert, but there was no damage reports. NASA's Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, or ATLAS, spotted the rock 12 hours before it entered the atmosphere. This makes it the fourth imminent impactor, which is an asteroid discovered within hours of its expected impact, detected this year, and the 11th overall. Now, China also has big plans for planetary defense. They're working on their first mission to hit an asteroid, and it's got a double purpose. One spacecraft will crash into the asteroid, and the other will hang back to study the whole thing for up to a year. In other words, it's not just about protecting Earth, it's also a way to learn more about the solar system. The target is an asteroid called 2015 XF261, which is a mouthful, and also about 100 feet wide. It flew by Earth recently on July 9th, passing us at 31 million miles. True, it's pretty far away, but the space traveler was zooming by at a speed of 26,000 miles per hour, 30 times faster than the speed of sound. China is going to send a space probe to study the asteroid. They're hoping to learn more about its structure and composition, which could help us with future planetary defense missions. Then they plan to hit the asteroid with another spacecraft to test the impact, and the first space probe will stay there to observe the remains for up to a year. Timing is critical for this mission, and the asteroid offers some good opportunities in the next few years. Thus, in March and May of 2027, the asteroid will pass within 20 million miles of Earth. In April 2028, it'll get even closer. By that I mean 13 million miles away. A year later, in April 2029, the asteroid will end up just 4.2 million miles away, making it the best shot for a mission. Another decent chance will be April 2030. That's when the asteroid will pass our planet at 4.4 million miles. To give you some context, NASA's DART mission once targeted an asteroid 7 million miles away, and the trip took 10 months. So China's planners have to pick the right moment, depending on how long their spacecraft will need to get there. The mission is expected to start around 2027. At the same time, this won't be China's first attempt to target an asteroid. Back in 2023, they were planning a planetary defense test with a different asteroid, which is also about 100 feet wide. It's not clear why they switched to the current one, probably because the timing works better. Most asteroids are basically time capsules from 4.6 billion years ago, leftovers from when the solar system was just forming. Studying them could tell us a lot about how planets, including Earth, came to be. So, China's taking on something that combines planetary defense and pure space science. They're definitely making big moves in the space exploration game.
There's nothing around, just the eternal, endless whiteness of Greenland's snow and cold winds blowing into your face. Nothing hints at the impending catastrophe. You take another step and freeze in horror. An abyss is spreading at your feet, bottomless and dark. If you had made a bigger step, it would have swallowed you. That infamous Greenland's hole. It happened in the middle of the 2010s. A group of geologists were scanning the surface of Greenland's Hiawatha Glacier using radar when they spotted something very, very strange. It was a giant pit, more than 980 feet deep and almost 20 miles wide. That's big enough to fit inside Washington, D.C. or Paris. After staring at their radars for quite a while and scratching their heads, researchers decided to find out what could have made such a huge hole. Could it have been good old erosion? A raging volcano? An asteroid impact? A giant sandworm? Ugh, I might have gone a bit overboard with this worm idea, but you never know with these ancient glaciers. Anyway, in our case, one mystery seemed to lead to another, which had been puzzling scientists for decades. And to solve both of them, scientists needed something super common, but at the same time very important: quartz. One of the most abundant materials in Earth's crust. But before we dig deeper into this topic, let's make a small detour and talk about a pretty bizarre phenomenon called the Younger Dryas event. To see what it was like, we need to go deep into the past, as far back as 12,900 to 11,600 years ago. During that period, the planet became much colder, especially in Europe and North America. Now, let's talk a bit more about that weird climate change in the Northern Hemisphere. There are a few theories. One that involves a change in currents in the Atlantic Ocean. Another speaks about something large kicking tons of dust into the air and effectively blocking sunlight. The two most popular and likely hypotheses mention a volcanic eruption and an asteroid impact. Indeed, there was a volcanic eruption on the territory of modern-day Germany at around the right time. But there's also a probability that a space object struck the planet during this period too. And now let's get back to the hole scientists found in Greenland. When NASA's Ice Bridge program and Germany's Alfred Wegener Institute discovered it, it seemed they had finally found the reason for the Younger Dryas event. But was it really an asteroid that created that impressive pit and caused temperatures to drop all over the Northern Hemisphere? To test this theory, the researchers needed quartz. The thing is, in its pure form, quartz has a very simple structure. It's made from interlocking silicon-oxygen tetrahedra. Efficient and so pretty. Just look at these six-sided prismatic crystals. Since its structure is so simple and the components are so common, you can find quartz almost in any rock on the planet. At one point, magic happens. Larger rocks erode away, pushing out tiny bits of quartz sand. The scientists exploring the mysterious pit gathered the quartz sand that had been washed out from underneath a glacier. It was like looking at the rocks at the very bottom of the hole without having to actually get all the way down there. Very handy. So while examining the material, they discovered quartz grains with the telltale signs of terrible catastrophe. They had PDFs all over them. No, I'm not talking about the document format. PDFs stand for planar deformation features, and they look like lines etched into the crystal surface. These lines are a sign that you're holding shocked quartz. It forms under immense pressure, when the internal crystals are pushed out of alignment. But the most exciting thing here is that shocked quartz only appears under the influence of powerful forces, like massive impacts or terrifying explosions. In other words, finding this poor shocked quartz under the Hiawatha Glacier could be much needed proof that the hole was an enormous impact crater that formed when something equally enormous crash-landed there. Based on the size of the crater, this space object probably was a bit more than a mile across, which is twice the height of the Burj Khalifa Tower in Dubai. A meteorite that big would have looked 3 times as bright as the sun when traveling across the sky, and it would have hit Earth with an immense force. The impact would have been so great it'd have vaporized rock and thrown debris for hundreds of miles away. The sky would have filled with dust. It would have dimmed the sun and led to a temperature drop all over the planet. And guess what? The last part about decreasing temperatures got the researchers super excited, because it opened up a possibility that the impact could have been connected to the Younger Dryas event. To prove this idea, scientists decided to use quartz again. They examined it more closely, trying to date the impact. Well, they were in for an even greater shock. The Hiawatha crater turned out to be not 12,000, but 58 million years old. On the other hand, the researchers were disappointed that they hadn't been able to confirm their theory. The crater couldn't explain the Younger Dryas cold snap, but on the other hand, it was still an amazing discovery. Now, get ready for one final twist to this story, and it revolves around quartz again. Other scientists have recently discovered more deposits of shocked quartz all over what is now the eastern USA. It was hiding in sediment layers dating to just before the Younger Dryas. Interestingly, there aren't any craters around those sites whatsoever. But quartz can't lie. It provides evidence of a powerful explosion. It makes scientists think that their impact hypothesis might still be true, but instead of a collision, it could be an airburst. A massive comet could have broken up while entering Earth's atmosphere around 12,000 years ago, and the fragments could have exploded before reaching the ground. It would have caused catastrophic mass burning throughout the North American continent and messed with the climate so much that the Younger Dryas would have been triggered. Well, I guess we need to wait a bit longer for scientists to find some further proof of this hypothesis. But it doesn't mean we don't have any more curious phenomena to explore in Greenland. Take these fascinating holes. They sure are kinda smaller than the monster we were talking about. They're called moulins, and they carry surface meltwater all the way down to the base of the Greenland ice sheet. And they have prepared some surprises for us too. Apparently, they're way larger than we previously thought. That's what a recent study based on observation and first-hand exploration claims. Even more interesting, this high volume might influence the stability of the ginormous ice sheet in question, as well as the speed at which it's sliding towards the sea. Researchers think that increased water depth and pressure inside moulins might lubricate the base of the ice sheet, making it move faster. You know, the way an ice cube slides more easily on a thin film of melted water. Until recently, we knew too little about the real size of moulins and how much water they can hold. But now, we know that moulins can be giant. The team made 2 trips to the Greenland ice sheet in 2018 and 2019. And during each of them, they used ropes and climbing equipment to drop around 330 feet into 2 separate moulins, almost touching the water's surface. Those who did it described the experience as intimidating. Picture this. Your back is over the edge. All you see is bluish ice going down and blurring into blackness. And the only thing you hear is occasional sounds of crashing ice. It must be extremely unnerving.
A new super-Earth has been spotted by astronomers, and it's quite intriguing. This planet, called TOI 715b, is about 1.5 the size of Earth, which is why it's called the super-Earth. It's also relatively close to us in space terms, only 137 light-years away. For comparison, most exoplanets are hundreds of light-years away, and all the interesting stuff, like black holes and nebulas, are usually more than thousands of light-years away from us. So, could it be habitable? The habitable zone is an estimate of where a planet might have the right conditions for liquid water. This is what we call some distance from the star, where the temperatures on the planet should be okay-ish, and water should stay liquid on its surface. It's not super precise, because it depends on a bunch of factors like the type of star, how reflective the planet is, its size, and so on. Also, just being in this zone isn't enough for water to actually be there. The planet also needs the right kind of atmosphere and a few other things. So, we invented a stricter definition in 2014, the conservative habitable zone. It's a more precise term defining the best candidates that have liquid water. Otherwise, we get too many potentially habitable planets that are not actually habitable at all. The CHZ is based on how much energy a planet gets from its star compared to Earth. If a rocky planet gets between 40 to 85%, it's considered to be in the CHZ, no matter how far away it is from its star. These planets have a higher chance of being habitable. And yes, TOI 715b is located there. This super-Earth orbits the M-type star, also called red dwarf. It's a star that's much smaller and cooler than our Sun, about a quarter of the Sun's size and mass. But if the planet is located in the habitable zone, it's actually a better option for life. Red dwarfs live much longer than our Sun, a yellow dwarf. This also means that they have more time to form little creatures on their planets. And this red dwarf really is older than our star. Our Sun is 4.6 billion years old, and this star is 6.6 billion years old, give or take a few hundred million. It doesn't have much magnetic activity, so it's not dangerous. It doesn't flare up like younger red dwarfs. These flares can be super strong and might even hurt planets by taking away their atmospheres. Although some planets around it do have thinner atmospheres, it seems like this red dwarf has already gone all out. These red dwarfs are where we're looking for planets that could support life right now. Our super-Earth is really close to its star, zooming around it in just 19 days. Since the star is small and the planet is so close, the planet passing in front of its star happens a lot and looks really clear. This makes it easy for telescopes like the James Webb to study its atmosphere without needing too much time. Now, speaking of the James Webb Space Telescope, it's bringing us into a new era of understanding distant planets beyond our solar system. Imagine being able to see what gases make up the air on a planet millions of light years away. James Webb will help us to find worlds that could support life. Right now, it's trying to figure out whether TOI 715b has an atmosphere. If it does, its atmosphere might be easier to spot compared to a planet that's drier and denser. And then we might get even more height because it would look like a good place for life. On top of all that, there might be another planet in this system, also in the habitable zone. We're not sure whether it's really there, it's just a candidate with a crazy name. But if it turns out to be real, it would be about the size of Earth. Also, it would be the smallest planet in the habitable zone ever spotted by the TESS telescope. Now, another cool thing about TOI 715b is that it cannot just have water on it, but be an entire water world. An ocean planet is a type of planet that has an ocean covering its surface or has subsurface oceans. They might not have much dry land because the water can cover everything. Sometimes the entire planet can be covered in other liquids, like lava or ammonia. When it comes to planets outside our solar system, we can't see surface water directly with our current technology. Instead, scientists look for water vapor in the atmosphere as a hint there might be liquid water below. And of course, we wonder if these planets can have life, hopefully not in the form of Leviathan-like monsters. Our models show that planets with oceans might be pretty common in our galaxy. This means there could be lots of ocean worlds out there waiting to be discovered. But the most important part about TOI 715b is that it's in the so-called small planet radius gap. If we give the planets a lineup, there will be those that are bigger and smaller than Earth. But there's a sudden gap in planets that are about from 1.5 to 2 times bigger than ours. Where are they? This gap is interesting to scientists because it tells us something about how planets form and change over time. It's not that planets don't form in this size range. They actually start off larger and then lose some of their mass, like a balloon gradually deflating. Perhaps it happens because of how they orbit their stars, with stars blowing away some of their mass as they dance around it, as our Sun does with gas from comet tails. This gap holds a lot of mystery, and planets, like our new super-Earth, are clues that could help us unravel it. We aren't sure whether it exists around red dwarfs. Maybe it's a gap in how dense these planets are, rather than in their actual size. So studying our discovered planet is even more interesting. It'll help us learn more about distant stars and their planets. Now, I mentioned TESS a while back. NASA's TESS, Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, has been in space for 6 years now and has been incredibly successful. NASA launched TESS because we already found over 5,000 planets orbiting other stars, mainly thanks to the Kepler telescope. But Kepler mostly found large planets, not necessarily like Earth. We decided to focus TESS on finding smaller Earth-like planets around nearby bright stars, making them easier to study with future telescopes. Here's how it works. The camera observes stars and looks for changes in their brightness. If the brightness suddenly drops for a while and then gets back, it could mean there is a planet passing in front of it. But stars can dim for other reasons too. For example, flaring up or having dark spots on their surface, which is why we need to be careful with this data. TESS shows us the size and orbit of these planets. Then ground telescopes help determine their mass. With these 3 parameters, we can figure out what the planets are made of and if they're rocky like Earth or gassy like Jupiter. Yeah, you want to avoid Jupiter after taco night. One example of TESS's discoveries was the TOI 700 system. There, it discovered its first ever Earth-like planet, TOI 700d. This exoplanet also orbited a red dwarf, and it's even closer to us, about 100 light-years away. Unfortunately, it's unlikely to be habitable because the temperatures there are crazy. Another big discovery was made in the AU microscopy system. TESS discovered a planet about 4 times the size of Earth and another nearly 3 times Earth's size. This system has become a key area for studying how stars and planets form and change over time. TESS has also spotted a variety of other exciting finds, including supernova, hot worlds, and so on. And as it enters its 6th year, we can only expect more exciting findings to come. If an asteroid like Apophis hits Earth, we will be destroyed. Massive earthquakes will strike, and tsunamis will flood everything. Apophis is a billion-year-old celestial body that has been in the solar system since its inception. So you might be thinking, well, how likely is it that this giant space stone will collide with our planet in 2029? Well, let's find out, shall we? Apophis is a big, bad asteroid discovered in 2004 by the Kitt Peak National Observatory in Arizona. Since then, it has proudly held the title of one of the most dangerous asteroids ever located. It's around 1,100 feet wide, which is a bit bigger than the Empire State Building and the Eiffel Tower. Because of how scary it is, it was named Apophis, like the Egyptian immortal creature that was considered to bring eternal darkness and destruction to Earth. Oh boy. In 2021, researchers had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to study this floating rock when it passed near our planet, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Now, some scientists say that there is a small chance of Apophis hitting the Earth on Friday, April 13, 2029. The Yarkovsky effect is to blame for this, since it can slightly nudge this space rock towards Earth. This effect originates from the uneven emission of thermal photons from a rotating celestial object, resulting in a fascinating force exerted upon it in space. These emitted photons possess momentum and play a pivotal role in shaping the dynamics of the body. The asteroid has two sides, light and dark, just like the Moon. The light side faces the Sun and is warmer than the dark side. But the thing also turns, so the sides constantly change direction and temperature. This change could be detrimental because it slightly pushes Apophis toward Earth. Unfortunately, nobody knows how the Joukowsky effect will influence the asteroid's path. On the other hand, on the asteroid's last flyby of Earth in 2021, astronomers used radar to take accurate measurements of its trajectory and confidently concluded Apophis will safely miss Earth in 2029 by about 20,000 miles and won't bother us again for at least 100 years. Now, generally speaking, every 8,000 years, our planet is hit by a falling star that has similar dimensions to those of Apophis. The last time we were hit by a slightly smaller meteor was in 2013. A new spacecraft developed by NASA called the OSIRIS-REx was launched in 2016 to collect samples from another slightly less terrifying celestial body called Bennu. 4 years later, it finally arrived at the thing, got some samples, quickly said goodbye to Bennu, and started traveling back towards Earth. The samples were safely stored in a capsule dropped in Utah. So far, this has been the most significant sample ever taken from an asteroid. After the delivery, the spacecraft didn't waste any time and started chasing Apophis. Now, OSIRIS-REx has been renamed to OSIRIS-APEX and is currently playing tag with Apophis. With some luck, on the 2nd of April 2029, when the asteroid zips close by Earth, the spacecraft will reach Apophis and land on it. It will stay on Apophis for 18 months, collecting valuable information and taking thousands of pictures. The asteroid will be monitored with the help of powerful telescopes. At some point, Apophis will get too close to the Sun, and then all the monitoring work will be on Osiris's apex back. If you live in Europe, West Asia, or Africa, you're one of those lucky people who will have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see Apophis with the unaided eye. It'll be visible in the sky in these regions in 2029, and those who have telescopes will be able to spot it once again in 2036. OSIRIS-APEX will experience some problems because the asteroid has a thick crust, and the spacecraft won't be able to collect data as easily as it did with Bennu. OSIRIS-APEX has a unique thruster that will blow all the dust from Apophis while landing. This will be a perfect chance to analyze the surface of the asteroid to see what it's made of. The craft will spend 1.5 years mapping the asteroid, trying to detect changes in its shape. All this research will show how the celestial body is likely to move so we can better design plans to protect Earth from such things. In 2025, NASA is also going to launch the mission Apophis Pathfinder, and it will be the first spaceship to ever touch this asteroid. It will land approximately a year after its launch. Also, NASA has proposed sending a swarm of tiny craft into space to help humanity develop effective protective tactics against asteroid strikes. We know that Apophis originated in the primary asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. In the past million years, this celestial body has changed its path because of the considerable influence of Jupiter's gravitation. Now it seems like it favors the Sun more, meaning this asteroid will come very close to Earth. That's why it's classified as a near-Earth celestial body. A lot of tests and research have been done to find a way to deal with asteroids. Some solutions include drilling and detonating the space body from inside, or testing new technologies, like attaching rockets to it and trying to steer it away from Earth. We can also hit it with something moving at high speeds to make it change its course. Apophis is an S-type asteroid made of rocks and minerals like iron and nickel, and is shaped like a peanut. It can tell us a lot about the past and possibly the future. Sampling this space object could reveal how life on Earth began and how plants appeared. There are many theories that suggest that water arrived on our planet on an asteroid or a comet. Asteroids are like priceless time capsules. Unlike rocks on Earth, which have undergone thousands of changes, like erosion, most celestial bodies are still intact and much easier to study. When meteors fall on Earth, they get covered in debris that's impossible to clean. That's why studying Apophis while it's still in space is so important. Also, some asteroids are made of precious metals like platinum. Right now, we have a high demand for metals that we use in production, and mining metals on Earth is quite tricky. Just one large meteor might have iron, nickel, gold, and platinum that could last us millions of years. If Apophis has this amount of metals, well, we'd want to break it down and bring it back to Earth. One space rock could be worth quadrillions of dollars, making space mining highly profitable. And still, it would cost us more to get it back to Earth than to dig up these materials here. As technology progresses and new kinds of rockets are developed, this might become possible at some point. So, even though we're safe for the next 100 years from Apophis, you probably still want to see what would happen if something like it did impact. Come on, sure you do. Well, first let me tell you, you'll hear the sound of the collision and know what's happened even if you're miles away. You should leave your house or apartment immediately. Shortly after the impact, massive earthquakes will strike, and many tall buildings will fall. So, staying away from cities might be your best option if you have a choice. But don't escape by car. There will be massive traffic jams, and everyone will panic. Going on foot or by bike is your best option in this scenario. A prime way of transportation will be traveling by plane, so if you've always wanted to get that pilot license, now you've got a good excuse. If you have time, take along extra snacks and water, and an extra pair of socks. It's nice to live by the ocean or the sea, but in this scenario, it's the worst place to be, because giant tsunami waves will hit coastlines after the impact. If you live far away from the impact area, the tsunami might take 30 hours to arrive. You'll have a bit of time to prepare. Incredible news has recently spread across the internet. NASA has discovered evidence of a parallel universe. But is this actually the truth? Well, there is a grain of truth in this story, but it's not that simple. Let's consider it. Perhaps you've seen the articles that said NASA has finally found a parallel universe. This story was widely publicized, and people got divided into two camps: those who took this news at face value and those who considered it all complete nonsense. But both sides aren't exactly right. Let's start from the beginning. The discovery was made by NASA's ANITA. This name stands for the Antarctic Impulsive Transient Antenna. Yeah. It was designed to study neutrinos. Neutrinos are high-energy cosmic particles. They're incredibly small, lack any charge, and have almost no mass. Trillions of such particles pass through our bodies every second, and we don't even notice them, all because they almost don't affect ordinary matter. That's how insignificant they are. On average, in our entire life, each of us gets affected by a maximum of one neutrino. So basically, hunting neutrinos is like hunting ghosts. To catch them, you would have to send a whole stream of these particles through a giant piece of lead, and it has to be trillions of miles thick. At the same time, you have a 50-50 chance that you'll stop one of them. Therefore, in order to detect them, scientists had to come up with some clever tricks. We know that neutrinos, like other similar particles, come to us from outer space. Ooh. They travel to Earth from the Sun, stars, and even from the Big Bang itself. Some of them come to us from particularly big sources, such as black holes, supernova, pulsars, and even from various unidentified objects. Some of these particles have particularly high energy, and for scientists, these neutrinos are the most interesting ones. But oddly enough, most high-energy neutrinos don't actually come to us from afar. They form right here, next to Earth. This process has a cute name: particle shower. Well, this is how you can explain it in simple words. A granny particle gets into Earth's atmosphere. Usually it's a particle with very high energy. Then it generates several children that have less energy. Each of them then makes more grandchildren whose energy is even less than theirs, and so on, until we have a giant family tree of low-energy particles. In the end, there may be billions of them. During this process, piles of neutrinos are created. Then they begin to sink deep into our Earth. During their journey through the planet, they touch the upper layers of its crust or ice, for example, Antarctica's ice. When faced with all these obstacles, they create radio pulses, and as you might have guessed, these are the exact radio pulses that scientists are trying to find. It may be a surprise to you, but Antarctica is pretty deserted, you think? And that's why it's the best place to study microscopic particles, which usually can barely be traced. There won't be any interference or anything like that. We can catch these pulses with the help of powerful antennas. NASA places these antennas on balloons that can rise as much as 20 miles above Earth's surface. That's how they've been tracking these neutrinos for the past years. Alright, now we know what ANITA is doing. But what about that parallel universe stuff? Nah, don't worry, we're getting there. In 2018, ANITA began receiving abnormal radio signals that caused quite a stir in the scientific community. Remember how neutrinos come to us from outer space and then gradually sink deep into our planet? So, recently, ANITA has discovered neutrinos that didn't descend from space as usual, but rather rose up from Earth. In other words, these particles, called tau neutrinos, basically travel back in time. But how is this possible? Scientists began to research them. At first, they thought that maybe it was a detector error or an error in interpreting the data. But no, everything was correct. Something very exotic was happening. If so, then first we must try to find a simple explanation. What if these tau neutrinos just came to Antarctica from some other source? Maybe they came to Earth from the other side and somehow passed through the boundary. To test this theory, scientists decided to seek help from another cool neutrino observatory called IceCube. Yes, very cool. This observatory is located near the South Pole. It consists of 5,160 optical detectors buried in ice, and all these powerful detectors are designed to detect neutrinos. ANITA researchers were like, "Hey guys, we found some strange radio signals. Could you please check where they come from?" "No problem," IceCube replied, and started their research. And as a result, they found nothing. Yep, IceCube didn't detect any signal sources at all. It turned out that these strange particles had basically appeared out of nowhere. How could this be? Scientists tested many different theories, but none of them could explain the situation accurately. Later, IceCube published an article which basically said, "Nope, we have no idea where these signals came from and how to explain them in terms of the standard model of the universe." Oh, now it's getting interesting. So, what on earth are these signals? Having exhausted normal explanations, scientists began to consider ideas that go beyond our understanding. One of them said that perhaps these particles had come to us from a parallel universe where time flows in the opposite direction. This crazy-sounding theory is the result of the famous multiverse theory. According to it, about 14 billion years ago, when the Big Bang happened, two twin universes were born. One of them was ours, and the other was a parallel one. And they're almost identical in everything, except for some things. For example, time in this parallel universe doesn't move in the same way as it does in ours. It moves backward. Besides, everything there would look upside down to us, as if we're looking in a mirror. Therefore, scientists call it the antiverse, and believe it could be filled with antimatter. And even though all this may seem strange and crazy to us, for those who live in that antiverse, their way of life would be quite normal. In fact, they would rather find us, the strange ones. So these mysterious neutrinos could be born in this antiverse. Let's say they somehow existed there and then accidentally got into our world, where we were able to detect them. The idea of the multiverse itself is really incredible. If it's true, then it may mean that there is an infinite number of realities, many of which are much better than ours. Quantum mechanics even says that it's quite possible that every second of every day, any of your decisions divides the universe into two. And so there are quintillions of parallel universes where our lives have gone very differently. Something like this is hard to even imagine. Of course, it would be great if we could find a way to get into another universe, and if these mysterious tau neutrino particles were able to cross the boundaries of two worlds, well, maybe we can do that too? But unfortunately, this phenomenon alone isn't enough to say whether the multiverse theory is true or not. This is just one of several possible options. At this stage of human development, we cannot prove or disprove this theory. Maybe someday in the future, we'll find out the truth, but definitely not now. The only thing we can say now, after this discovery, is that we've found strange radio signals which standard physics can't explain. So we need to move in this direction and study them to learn more about this incredible phenomenon. But people like to dream about space, so no wonder we've gotten so excited about this. And it would be great if one day it turned out that this theory was actually true. The theory of parallel universes has been popular in various movies and books for a very long time. Where would you go if you found out that you could travel between realities? Me? I look for a different reality of ice cream.
Professional storage hunting is really quite a gig these days. It's drawn a lot of attention from people all around the world too, since there are many TV shows focused on it. But it's not just storage hunters that can hit the jackpot with their findings. One couple from Arizona simply wanted a couch, but they weren't willing to buy a new one or pay a lot of money for it, so they participated in an auction where they made a $10 offer for an old couch. Since that piece of furniture wasn't in the best shape, they ended up purchasing the couch and the container it came in. When going through the storage unit, they had the best surprise. They found an old teddy bear filled with cash. That little toy ended up bringing them about $300,000. In 2011, another man came across an interesting discovery of his own after he examined the contents of a storage locker in San Fernando Valley. What he stumbled upon was a special comic book called Action Comics #1. The man didn't really know how valuable his finding was until he took it to an expert for further evaluation. Turned out, the comic book was actually the first one featuring Superman. But as much as he wanted to profit from it, the man had to give it back to the previous owner. The story goes that the comic book was stolen from a famous actor, who was himself really passionate about comics and Superman in particular. The actor had reported the book as missing to his insurance company and authorities, but it couldn't be found. The comic book, estimated to be worth somewhere around $1 million, reunited with its rightful owner 11 years after it had been stolen. Another incredible vintage object was found in a storage unit in Melbourne, Australia. It was a 1927 Harley-Davidson 8-valve racer with a sidecar. Based on experts' opinion, this fascinating vehicle had been sitting there for over half a century before resurfacing in 2015. It went for sale pretty soon afterwards and was purchased for a whopping $470,000. Some auctions for abandoned storage units are fun just because you have no idea what you're going to find in there. And that's regardless of how much profit you'll end up making. It's the story of a couple from Long Island that spent only $100 on the best thing they'd ever purchased. Hidden inside their mystery unit was a custom 1976 Lotus Esprit Sport. Not only was this car special because of its design, but it was also the car that was used in the 1977 James Bond movie, The Spy Who Loved Me. At first, the couple had no idea the car was a famous one, so they just looked at how they could fix it so they could continue using it. I mean, it did look pretty cool. After they took it to a repair shop, they found out that there was something special about the vehicle. Soon enough, they discovered where it came from and ended up selling it at an auction in 2013. The price? A mind-boggling $997,000. Another person from Southern California found something incredible in an abandoned storage unit back in 2017. His locker ended up filled with vintage videos, game hardware, and game cartridges. After he took them for evaluation, he found out that his findings were worth over $50,000. In 2010, another person paid just $275 for a large storage unit that seemed to be filled with simple salon supplies. But after looking closely, the person discovered a hidden object that ended up being worth a lot. A 1928 Marshall & Wendell salesman piano. After further evaluation, the price of the musical instrument was estimated somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000. Space technology and a forgotten storage unit? This unit was auctioned off in Florida. After inspecting it, the owner realized it contained a NASA rocket and a countdown clock. Apparently, those were put into storage after the program they were supposed to be used in had been discontinued. The finding became so famous that it even made it on TV. Fans of famous singers may get some surprises in abandoned storage units too. Here's a story about a unit containing Aretha Franklin's personal belongings. Most of her things were transported there after an incident at her house. She ended up abandoning those items. Later, she admitted she had forgotten about them. At the auction, things like bags, articles of clothing, and even receipts in her name were presented to the public. Similarly, tucked away in a locker that used to be the property of Michael Jackson's dad, there were over 250 undiscovered and unreleased recordings. During the time the King of Pop wrote and produced those songs, he was between contracts. So, technically, there was no legal ownership of the songs. More so, the locker contained a huge number of photos of the famous singer and personal objects belonging to the Jackson family. Some of these items were auctioned off, while some others were acquired back by the family at great expense. It goes to show that missing a payment on your storage unit can be detrimental to everyone, regardless of how famous you are. Not every item found in storage units is inanimate. As weird as that may sound, one story has it that a man kept stumbling upon a cat while regularly visiting his storage unit. He couldn't really figure out how she got in there and why she kept coming back to visit. So, he decided to take her home. Never thought you'd find a furry new friend in a storage unit, right? Other storage locker stories are less fortunate, like this one that happened in 2011, when a man thought he would hit the jackpot pretty easily if he could steal some valuables from an abandoned locker. But as he was filling his bags with the stuff he'd managed to get his hands on, a security guard saw that the door to the particular locker was open. Since he didn't hear any noise coming from inside, the guard decided to simply close the door. He thought that the owner had mistakenly left it open. Needless to say, the thief got stuck inside and was eventually caught and handed over to the police after he tried to escape. Keeping items in storage units may seem like a great idea when you need some space in your house but don't want to get rid of them just yet. However, you do need to know that there are a couple of rules you need to follow, because not every item is safe or legal to keep in storage. Take vehicles, for instance. In the US, most storage room suppliers only accept them if they're fully registered, insured, and in operable condition. And this doesn't just apply to cars. I'm also talking about trailers, boats, and even trucks. So you need to be prepared to offer all sorts of supporting documentation before you can move such an item into a storage facility. For obvious reasons, perishable items are a no-go. It includes food that needs to be refrigerated, food that is not kept in airtight containers, and even dry pet food in some cases. Most companies that offer storage space stay away from such items because they can attract bugs and rodents, or might encourage bacteria and mold to develop inside. You might think canned food is a no-go, but in most places, it's not allowed either. That's because the standard storage unit does not have a specific way in which you can control the temperature inside, and some food cans can burst in high heat environments. Plants aren't allowed in storage containers either. Not only do they need sunlight to thrive, but they can be a source of bugs and pests too. More so, some plants can cause weird smells if not treated properly. So it's best if you plant them outside or give them away if you can't fit them inside your house anymore.
Way back in the Victorian era, a strange celestial body appears to have popped up in our solar system. Was it an asteroid? Or maybe a comet? It took us until October 2017 to notice it and to start studying it closely. It was named Oumuamua, which is Hawaiian for scout. Not only is its shape extremely unusual, highly elongated and narrow, but it's also speeding so fast that it appears the sun's gravity doesn't affect it so much. So what is this strange, wandering rock? Specialists at first thought it mostly looked like an asteroid, but they took a closer glance and concluded that it was most likely a comet. They believed it's propelled by little jets of gas caused by the warmth of the sun, which could drive it off its natural course. Apart from the way it moves, the looks of Oumuamua are also special compared to those of other comets. These types of celestial bodies reflect about 4% of the light that falls on them. Oumuamua, surprisingly, has double the reflective properties. Sadly, we aren't able to study this bizarre object anymore, since it has already left our neighborhood in the solar system. We've heard so many stories about the Bermuda Triangle, from its mysterious events to very detailed scientific explanations as to why they happen at times. Well, you'll be surprised to know there's a space equivalent to the Bermuda Triangle, which some astronauts claim to have witnessed. What they described was similar to an intense flash of light as they passed through a specific location, which they then called the South Atlantic Anomaly. There could be an explanation for this. Firstly, it's important to know the Earth's magnetic field is not perfectly aligned to its rotation axis. There is an area of about 125 miles above the South Atlantic, where some type of radiation is as close to the Earth's surface as possible. When passing through this location, computers stopped working, and space staff saw those cosmic bursts of light I mentioned. As far as we know, there are 8 planets in our solar system: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. But could there be another one, the 9th planet out there that we've yet to discover completely? Some astronomers are certain there is, and they're currently calling it Planet 9. Its location seems to be way beyond Neptune, the 8th planet we've known so far, and the farthest away from the Sun. The problem is, we've been wrong before. In 1801, we stumbled upon Ceres, what we now know as the largest asteroid in the solar system. But we initially believed it to be a planet too. And you must know the story about Pluto. First, we believed it was a planet right after we discovered it in 1930, but then reclassified it as a dwarf planet. The fact that Planet 9 is so far away from us makes it difficult to photograph and study, hence its uncertain status. For specialists to track Planet 9, light has to travel all the way out there from the Sun and almost all the way back again. Astronomers were able to cover somewhere around 30% of the area where this planet is supposed to be. They also estimate it will take about another 4 years to study the rest of it and make a conclusion. A nebula is basically a huge cloud of dust and gas somewhere in space. Some of them come from dying stars after they've exploded. Others are the locations where new stars are beginning to form. That's why some nebulae are even called star nurseries. They can come in many different colors and sizes, but one in particular caught the eyes of astronomers because of its spectacular shape. It's called the Red Rectangle Nebula, and it's located in the constellation of the Unicorn, about 2,300 light-years away from us. We don't know exactly what causes that unusual shape, but one explanation could be that there are 2 stars at its core. These stars could create 2 cones of bright dust, which together make the nebula look like a square. What's even more puzzling about this formation is that it displays something called extended red emission. This means that its dust has a specific reddish glow. It's difficult to tell what causes this, but those 2 potential stars in the middle certainly have something to do with it. Remember when I mentioned Neptune is the most distant planet in the solar system? It's around 30 times farther from the Sun than we are. It would make sense for it to be the coldest out of all the planets, but here comes the surprise, it's not. And scientists have yet to pinpoint why. In 1989, NASA's spaceship Voyager 2 passed by both Uranus and Neptune. It found that Neptune was warmer than its neighbor, even though it was farther away from the Sun. Scientists came up with a bunch of theories trying to explain this staggering discovery. One of them had to do with the gravitational differences between Uranus and Neptune. Neptune's blue hues are more intense than those of Uranus. So, NASA researchers believe there's another unidentified chemical in Neptune's atmosphere. It could explain the unusual temperature. The weather could also have something to do with it. Neptune apparently has the strong, which they named the Great Dark Spot. This storm was bigger than our whole planet. It disappeared in 1994, so there's little we can understand about it these days. These extreme winds can push frozen methane through the planet's atmosphere and mess up the temperature. Uranus is a bit weird itself on a closer look, apart from it basically being a huge ball of gas, of course. Why is that? Well, firstly, because it rotates on its side, making it look like it rolls around the sun like a ball. This curious orientation, about 90 degrees sideways, is probably because of some kind of massive collision that happened in its past. This tilt is also the reason why Uranus has the most extreme seasons in the solar system. 1 year on Uranus is as long as 84 Earth years. For about a quarter of this period, the sun shines straight over the north or south pole of the planet. This could explain the huge difference between its highest and lowest yearly temperatures. Let's also look at the little ones for a bit, shall we? I mean Mercury and Pluto. Mercury is already the smallest planet, or second smallest if we count the dwarf planet Pluto, of course, in our solar system. It's also the second densest after our planet, and it's getting smaller and denser at the same time. For a long time, we thought that our planet was the only tectonically active one. That was until we discovered that Mercury was still active in this department also. So that's probably the reason why it's shrinking and compacting as time goes by. Pluto's atmosphere is giving scientists a lot of headaches to this day. They revealed that it has about 20 layers in its atmosphere, and they're cooler and more compact than they initially estimated. NASA's New Horizons team also discovered that the dwarf planet releases a huge quantity of nitrogen each hour, but somehow Pluto can constantly restock on its lost nitrogen. Maybe it's thanks to some intense geological activity. Just like most participants at talent shows, we also have a failed star in our solar system. Sorry, Jupiter, we're talking about you. It may not be the most appropriate description in terms of astronomical facts, but some specialists do call Jupiter a failed star. That's because, similarly to a star, Jupiter has a lot of chemicals like hydrogen and helium. At the same time, Jupiter doesn't have nearly enough mass to start a fusion reaction in its core and transform into a star. Stars generate their energy by mixing together hydrogen atoms under extreme heat and pressure, which creates helium. As this process takes place, it releases light and heat, which gives stars their appearance and temperature. How do they manage that? Well, they have a significant amount of gravity for starters. For Jupiter to flare up a fusion process and transform itself into a star, it would need to be more than 70 times heavier. In theory, if we could mix together a lot of Jupiters, we might have ourselves a new star. But sadly for it, in our solar system, Jupiter will have to stick with being a huge lump of gas. Biggest of them all, though. Imagine you get to be an archaeologist for the day. You'll travel the world to solve the mystery of long-lost civilizations that disappeared without a trace. Grab your chisel and fedora, and let's go. You arrive at the American Southwest, where an ancient mystery is waiting to be solved. You make your way to Chaco Canyon, just outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's hot and dry in this deserted area. You're here to visit the ancient ruins of the Anasazi people. It's said that they were a thriving civilization that met a mysterious end. You hike a few miles before you begin to make out the shape of dwellings, constructions built of stone in the middle of the canyon. This is Pueblo Bonito, a 10th century complex that contains as many as 800 rooms and stands over 5 stories tall. The buildings are beautiful and made from sandstone. To access the complex, its inhabitants built a 400-mile network of roads, some of them 30 feet wide. You can't wrap your head around the fact that it was built so long ago. Everything looks so well preserved. The Anasazi reigned over the so-called Four Corners region from 100 CE to around 1600 CE. During this time, they built a civilization that sprawled over 30,000 square miles, including Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Arizona. Standing inside a huge kiva, an underground ceremonial chamber, you wonder what happened to the Anasazi people. Scientists have analyzed tree rings and found out that the Anasazi population lived through a period of great drought. The drought is believed to have lasted 23 years, and there was possibly no rain at all during this time. This definitely affected their livelihood, from malnutrition to battles over food and resources. But was it enough to make 30,000 people flee their homes? Researchers say these people left their homes with their belongings still in place. Ladles were left in ceramic bowls. Granaries were full of supplies. It was as if they intended to return, but never had the chance to come back. For many years, archaeologists have believed that the drought was the reason for the disappearance of this thriving society. But there's other evidence that shows a different story. Anthropologists say that the ancestral Puebloans, as they are also called, were an exemplary population. They were peaceful and lived together in harmony. But that's not what their architecture shows. They isolated themselves from the rest of the world by building their settlements so high on top of cliffs. And they built walls and other security structures in order to protect themselves. What were they so afraid of? Recently, archaeologists began to study bone fossils of the ancestral Puebloans, and they found evidence that suggests that toward the end of their civilization, things might have gotten pretty bad. Evidence shows that local leaders were ruling using fear-based methods. Severe punishment started to be inflicted on those who did not follow their strict rules. Why this happened is still a mystery, and you might need many other excavation trips to find out the truth. It's lucky that your next destination is really close by. Still in New Mexico, you'll visit the Blackwater Draw. It's a national prehistoric site that holds the story of the Clovis people. You're shocked to find out that the Clovis are possibly the oldest humans to have inhabited the U.S. They were the first humans to allegedly cross the Bering Strait and follow the ice-free trails down to the U.S.'s southern plains. Try to picture what this area looked like when the Clovis people roamed this land. A huge spring-fed lake with mammoths, giant sloths, saber-toothed tigers, and bison much bigger than the ones we have today wandering around. The archaeological site you're visiting shows that the Clovis population were big game hunters. You're able to identify the bones of several mammoths and even the stone tools that our prehistoric ancestors used to hunt them. Some of these date back to 13,000 years ago, aka the end of the last ice age. You're presented with two possible theories on the disappearance of the Clovis population. It's possible that during the final 1,500 years of the last ice age, changes in climate caused a shortage of food. Scientists also believe that this situation was worsened by overhunting. Another theory suggests that a large meteor hit North America, and this was enough to alter the climate and make the Clovis people migrate southward to try to survive. But the truth is, there's no evidence that any of that happened. Next, you'll fly to the Pacific Ocean, to the mysterious Easter Island. This place has left us with many questions, from the building of 13-foot-high face statues to the sudden disappearance of the Rapa Nui people who inhabited the area. You approach the island at Anakina, a white sandy beach on the island's northern shore. Researchers believe this area was one of the first settlements of the Rapa Nui. You could say you're standing at the end of the world, as you're over 3,000 miles away from South America and 1,000 miles away from the nearest island. Around 800 CE, when the first humans arrived, the island was an oasis. Today, the area is mostly deserted. You get your first clue on the fall of the Rapa Nui from an excavation pit you open at the beach. There's clear evidence of human presence. charcoal, tools, and bones, some of them belonging to rats. Bingo. When humans arrived at Easter Island, they brought along rodent companions. They probably didn't know this at the time, but these rodents would contribute largely to their demise. Rats love palm trees, which helped to deforest the natural vegetation of the island gradually over the years. But there's another clue. Looking into genetic data, you discover that South Americans came into contact with the Rapa Nui around 1722. What might have happened to this population is the same that happened to other more isolated groups. The contact with foreign groups brought about diseases that possibly led to the end of the Rapa Nui. To finish off your trip, you're headed to Cambodia. The country was once home to the Great Khmer Empire from the 9th century CE to the 15th century CE. The ruins of this place are magnificent. Your main excavation site is the Plains of Angkor, built alongside the Mekong River. This huge site was the most important Khmer city at the time. Just FYI, Angkor actually means capital city in the Khmer language. The Khmer were able to build a huge network of roads connecting Angkor with the rest of the empire. And it's believed that up to 1 million people were spread throughout the Khmer Empire at its peak days. It was the largest pre-industrial city in the entire world. It's comparable in size to modern-day Los Angeles, just so you can get an idea. The Khmers were also master builders and engineers. They managed to build a complex irrigation system that helped their rice farming through the centuries. And to connect their cities, they built almost 500 miles of intricate highways and bridges. Oh, and not to mention the complex architecture of their religious buildings, such as Angkor Wat, one of today's most visited tourist sites in Cambodia. It took over 30 years to build, and it spreads over almost 500 acres. Back in the day, its towers were probably decorated with gold. But today, the site is a maze of vine-covered temples. Like your fellow researchers that came here before you, you're unsure of what caused this civilization to be wiped off the map. One possible guess has to do with the climate in the region. Strong monsoons might have caused massive floods and severe damage to the infrastructure, especially to the water system the Khmer people heavily relied on to survive. But another reason could have been regional conflict and immigration. Toward the end of the 15th century, the empire started to decline in numbers, and this could have weakened its strong power. You might not go home with many answers, but you've certainly learned a lot, huh?
No one will hear your cry in space, or something like that. We've all heard this famous chilling phrase, and it's actually true. Space, for the most part, consists of a giant nothingness. There's a lot of, space in space. But this doesn't mean there are no sounds in space. In fact, there are plenty of them, and some of them can even make you shiver. Let's take a look at the scariest space sounds. First of all, how are cosmic sounds even recorded? Sound is just the vibration of molecules. When you scream, you make the molecules push each other furiously until they reach the ear of the person you're yelling at. Then these vibrations get transmitted to the brain, and we recognize them as something that you might need to apologize for. In other words, to hear something, we need molecules. And that's where things get complicated. There aren't any of them in space. The entire universe almost completely consists of a vacuum. No, not a Hoover. Absolute nothingness. However, the wizards from NASA still record space sound somehow. So how do they do it? The thing is, there are some types of waves that don't care about molecules. We regular folk can't perceive them without some special devices. These waves include, for example, radio waves. We'll need a radio or something like that to recognize them. And that's exactly what NASA's satellites do. They catch random radio waves. Thanks to their heroism, we can find out how different cosmic bodies sound. These satellites record a variety of waves, fluctuations of plasmas, magnetic fields, and other, stuff. And then scientists from NASA transform all this into normal soundtracks. And some of them sound quite frightening, to put it mildly. Let's take our magnetic field, for example. It surrounds our planet like an invisible shield, protecting us from all sorts of nasties, like radiation and solar winds. At the same time, we can neither see it, feel it, nor hear. Oops. Well, the last one is outdated. Scientists from the Technical University of Denmark took magnetic waves recorded by the ESA swarm satellite. They converted them into an audio track and got a pretty creepy result. Now, to be honest, it sounds more like an eerie entity stalking you in the middle of the night. And if you remember the maps of Earth's magnetic field, it starts to feel like a spider crawling nearby. Ew. And this isn't the first strange sound that we caught on Earth. Recently, we caught another weird radio emission from space. Scientists found out that the repeating signal came from somewhere very far away, like billions of light years away from us. Such fast radio bursts usually lasted no longer than a few milliseconds, but this one was unique. It lasted about 3 seconds, basically thousands of times longer than usual. And at the same time, the signal was very precise, so much so that scientists even compared it to a heartbeat. Scientists believe that this signal is caused by pulsars, or neutron stars. One time, Nikola Tesla caught something similar, but unfortunately, at that time, we didn't know about such things as pulsars, so Tesla was sure that he had caught a message from some extraterrestrial life. It's a pity that the truth turned out to be much more boring. But let's move on from the Earth to the Moon. In 1969, the astronauts of the Apollo 10 mission, the spacecraft that made the final test flight to the Moon, flew past its surface. And then they caught some strange signals coming from the dark side of the Moon, the side that we never see because the Moon is tidally locked to us. The sound was so weird that the astronauts weren't even sure whether to report it to NASA. They were afraid they wouldn't be taken seriously, and maybe even not allowed to participate in the next space missions. Here's what it sounded like. But according to NASA, it's not some creepy extraterrestrial music at all. These may just be some radio waves that affected each other because of their proximity, although the astronauts who heard it for the first time probably felt a little creeped out. Let's move to the other planets. Now, 40 years ago, scientists actively explored the surface of Venus. They sent as many as 10 probes there, which were supposed to capture audio and video shooting from the surface. Now we know what Venus, which could easily destroy us at any attempt to even get close to it, sounds like. Horrifying. And you wouldn't expect anything else from the most dangerous planet in the solar system. Unfortunately, Venus is even more toxic than the average Twitter user. So these probes didn't last too long. They heroically arrived on a planet and soon broke down. Next one is Jupiter. This space giant, which is 11 times larger than the Earth, never fails to scare us. One of NASA's probes, Juno, flies around Jupiter every few weeks. The probe is moving at a tremendous speed, 130,000 miles per hour. One day, Juno caught one of the strongest invisible signals it had ever encountered. This was the point at which the mad solar wind came into conflict with the magnetic field of Jupiter. It kind of sounded like a cosmic boom. The original sound lasted 2 hours, but it was compressed to a few seconds. It actually sounds more like a collision of a sea wave and a rock. But here, in terms of horror, Jupiter surprisingly loses to one of its small moons, Ganymede. In 2021, the Galileo space probe flew past Ganymede, and during its flight, it received a rather strange recording. These sounds are satellite radiation, and it's unclear whether it sounds like a cozy sunny day in the jungle or like thousands of bats waiting for you in the night. Next one is Saturn. This signal was caught by the Cassini-Huygens Automatic Interplanetary Station, which was launched into space in 1997. When flying past Saturn, Cassini recorded a pretty scary sound. This terrifying cry of thousands of souls is actually just some radio waves. They aren't too different from what the auroras emit on Earth. A little later, Cassini received another recording, the sounds made by lightning and thunderstorms on Saturn. They sound pretty interesting too. More like popping corn or a Geiger counter, right? But that's just because these lightning strikes have a crazy frequency. Moving on from the solar system to outer space. The famous Voyager 1 was launched back in 1977 and continues to send us data even 40 years after its launch. In 2012, it left the solar system and entered interstellar space. And then, while abandoning its home, Voyager 1 detected the sound of plasma waves. The original recording lasted 7 months, but fortunately, scientists felt sorry for us and reduced it to 12 seconds. It isn't really eerie, but is still kind of unsettling. And although it feels like nothing can beat Saturn's horrors, let's end this tournament with one of the scariest objects in the universe, a black hole. This sound was recorded by the Chandra Space Telescope. While studying a cluster of galaxies in the constellation Perseus, they discovered something strange. Some undulating movements appear from the center of the cluster. They spread out in all directions, like circles on the water. Scientists have suggested that this was caused by a supermassive black hole. The thing is, black holes don't always devour space objects entirely. Sometimes they kind of spit them out. This causes vibrations of gases, which we can convert into soundtracks. What's interesting is that the oscillation of each such wave actually lasts about 10 million years. You're just listening to a very accelerated recording. Scientists have reduced the delay between oscillations by about 144 quadrillion times. So let's check it out. This is probably the eeriest sound from the whole list. Nothing too loud or wild, but there's something dark and disturbing about it. Now, those were the scariest space sounds captured by NASA. To be fair, most of them sounded creepy simply because they're radio waves, but it's still fun to get spooked sometimes. Perhaps we've all stopped to think at one point about what it would be like to live on another planet. I know I've had days like that. Gotta get away. And maybe even interact with other types of creatures that already live somewhere else in space. These days, such ideas sound more like something from a science fiction book. But in the future, permanently changing your address to another planet might turn out to be mandatory. Think of the stars in our solar system as a battery. Billions of years from now, its energy will be gone. Without its light and warmth, life on Earth can't exist. When you think about it this way, we have to hope that future humans will have found some other place to live by then. Thankfully, there's good news. Recently, scientists at NASA have announced that they have found a new planet that might be able to support life. They call it TOI 700e. E! It's roughly the same size as Earth, and it's located in a region of space where scientists think water could exist in its liquid form, which is crucial for the development of life. This planet is not the only one, though. Close to it, there's another promising planet which they call TOI 700d, but this one is further away from its star. Because of the distance from the main source of light, Planet D lies in a special area called the Conservative Habitable Zone. In simple terms, scientists aren't sure whether life might exist on this one, but they don't exclude such a possibility. Planet E is in the optimistic zone, which means that it's possible that it has water and even an atmosphere. Hey, at least we have some options. The two planets are in a solar system that's only 100 light-years away from Earth, which is considered pretty close in space terms. NASA found these planets by watching the light from the star and measuring how it moves when a planet passes in front of the star. This is the first time that NASA has found a solar system with multiple planets that could have life. So far, scientists have found over 5,000 exoplanets, and they think there could be at least 10,000 more. Specialists at NASA are looking into the ways to figure out if any of these planets could harbor life. But they also say we might find forms of life we don't expect to see, and that we should be open to other possibilities. That's because we only know about what life can be by looking at our own planet. Sure, everything sounds enticing so far, but don't pack your bags just yet. As appealing as these new planets might sound, there's still one problem: getting there. Scientists have been researching for decades how people can stay in space and thrive for long periods of time. And history tells us it's no easy project. Back in 1962, John Glenn became the first American to orbit our planet. To circle Earth a mere 3 times, he had to go through months of technical and physical preparations. These days, advanced technologies help us investigate Mars better, and scientists have figured out that there is water and materials on the red planet that may be useful to people. It has sparked the idea of sending people to Mars to live there, just to begin with. The first manned Mars mission is scheduled for the late 2030s or early 2040s, if everything goes well. The plan is for this to be a round trip, but even if NASA manages to plan everything well, the round-trip journey will still take about 500 days. It all depends on Mars and Earth's positions in their orbits around the Sun. One of the biggest problems with living on Mars is gravity. For starters, the astronauts will arrive at the red planet after months of living in microgravity. It means it could take them a lot of time to physically get in shape before they could start exploring. That's because living in microgravity conditions heavily affects the human body. It might mean loss of bone and muscle mass, as well as a shift in the normal movement of body fluids, which tend to go upward. This can lead to pressure on the eyes and even problems with people's eyesight. But Mars is right here, in our own solar system. What about planets that are light years away? The answer is still up for debate. It may sound cool to travel really fast, like at the speed of light. So far, scientists believe it's not possible. Sure, we may have been able to create airplanes that travel faster than sound, supersonic aircraft, but it's not the same. There's quite a difference, actually. Light is about 1 million times faster than sound. Traveling at the speed of light would mean we could go from Earth to the Moon in 1 second, or from Los Angeles to New York in less than the blink of an eye. But what stops us, though? Some say it's energy. It may be possible to make something go really fast, but it'll take a whole lot of energy. In this case, engineers will need to find new ways to make things move in space. Right now, rockets use fuel that is similar to the gasoline you use in your car. But that's not very efficient when it comes to space travel. Other ways to push a spacecraft include using electric or magnetic forces. One promising idea is using a solar sail, which is like a large thin sheet of plastic that can be pushed through space by sunlight. Some spacecraft have already used solar sails, and scientists think they could go up to about 10% of the speed of light. If other planets in our solar system turn out to be inhospitable, and we can't invent spaceships that move fast enough, we might still have a choice. Secret Option C. It was first proposed by a scientist who wrote an interesting study about a special type of planet. It suggests that we might not need spaceships to move around and escape problems on our own planet. We could use planets that are not orbiting a star. They're called rogue planets. Ooh. Instead of gravitating toward a star, these lonesome space objects simply drift alone through space, doing their own thing. Think about it this way. Moving to Mars is like moving to an already furnished house. Regardless of how nice it would be, you would still have to adapt to it. You'd have to get used to how much light gets in through the windows every day, and to climbing up and down the stairs to get to the living room. Moving to a rogue planet means we'd start from scratch, building our own house from the ground up, perfectly adapted to our needs. Free-floating planets are usually seen as cold, dark, and not suitable for life. But if they have underground resources, they can be useful. They offer a constant surface gravity, a lot of space, and resources. They can also provide water and protection from space radiation. If we become an advanced enough civilization, we might be able to control the planet and even create new types of energy. So the next question would be where we could find such a rogue planet. It's hard to know how many of these there are in the universe, but scientists have found a bunch of them in one region of the Milky Way galaxy. Some rogue planets have been kicked out of their own solar systems because they were bad. No, not really. It was because of gravity, while others might have formed on their own. Either way, we don't want rogue planets to get too close either, at least not in the near future. The chances of a rogue planet entering our solar system are extremely low. But if it did, it could mess things up for us. Depending on its size, a rogue space object might divert other planets off of their course around the Sun, which could alter their exposure to light and warmth. And if it crashes into the Earth, well then, that would be a bad thing too. So imagine being one of the first people sent to explore Mars. As you're approaching the red planet, something strange and creepy draws your attention. There, yes, right there. Doesn't it look like a mammoth bear's head? What or who could possibly create a bear's snout in the middle of a crater? Unfortunately, or should I say luckily, there's nothing mysterious about the bear's head. It's just a facial pareidolia. That's a tendency to see facial features in everyday things. But speaking about the finding on Mars, should we rename the phenomenon into Bearidolia? You could see that coming, couldn't you? Alright, check it out. You see a V-shaped hill that looks like a nose. Then there are two craters that look like eyes. And then there's a circular fracture pattern, the head, that surrounds the nose and the eyes. Experts think that the face could be created when a deposit was settling over a buried impact crater, and the nose might be a mud or volcanic vent with solidified lava or mud flows around it. Anyway, the crater does look like a bear's face, I'll give you that. But thanks to HiRISE, the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's high-resolution imaging science experiment camera, another of NASA's amazing acronyms, we've seen many other crazy craters on the red planet, like smiley faces, a bird, or an elephant. First, let's have a look at the famous face of Mars. These images were first taken by the Viking orbiter in 1976. At that time, the resolution was obviously quite poor, plus the lighting was slanted, which produced the result that shocked people in the 1970s, a face carved of rock staring back at Earth. Did it mean there was another civilization on Mars that had created this monument? Nah. Look at the photo of the same spot taken by the current Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. The resolution is much, much better, and the face has miraculously turned into an ordinary hill. Or look at this teeny Bigfoot, whose image was captured in 2008. I say teeny because this creature is just a few inches tall, and when the photo was taken, Bigfoot was only several yards away from the camera. And here, one curious soul zoomed in on a small rock and spotted something that resembled a gorilla. That's how some people started to believe there were apes on Mars. Yeah, really. Let me show you some more examples of imaginary creatures and faces on the red planet. Most of them come from a series of images taken by the Themis camera. Currently, it's on board the Mars Odyssey spacecraft, which only needs 2 hours to orbit the red planet, carrying some important scientific instruments. Let me introduce my Happy Martian to you. This 2-mile-wide crater was photographed in 2008. The next crater chain looks like a wasp with its wispy wings of impact debris. The whole feature was probably created by a meteorite that fell at a very low angle and broke into pieces right before the impact. Now, do you see a woolly mammoth or an elephant here? Lava flows in one region on Mars left this image on its reddish soil. The region itself, called Elysium Planitia, is famous for the planet's youngest lava flows. For example, the one that looks like a mammoth most likely formed in the past 100 million years. Just yesterday. Now let's talk about love, or rather its symbol, the heart. Do you like these two hearts on the surface of the red planet? This one is actually a mesa top outlined by frost, and this heart shape is an impact crater. The hit tore away dark surface material and exposed lighter soil underneath. Then some of the material probably flew downslope, creating the heart. And this dust-covered hummingbird, can you see its long beak and head? Scientists aren't sure how this shape was formed, but they think erosion and wind played a part in its creation. These dark sand dune deposits look like a howling wolf. And here, can you see a series of interlocking gears? This image looks like the letter T, right? The right angle fracture was created by the tectonic stretching of the Martian crust. Do you think we might find other letters of the alphabet on Mars too? Why not? And now, how about another bizarre thing astronomers noticed on the surface of Mars? Is that a door to someone's house? It was NASA's Curiosity rover that sent this image to Earth. It became viral because this formation over here, see, looks like a door. Unfortunately, scientists, due to their rational minds, were quick to disappoint us. They claimed that it was just a natural part of the Martian landscape. There were several clues that made them think it wasn't a real door. For example, the opening is tiny, a mere 3 feet high. They're sure that what looks like a door is actually an opening in a rock created by natural forces, like winds and erosion. If you look at the rock closely, you may notice strata. Those are layers of silt that stand out because they're harder than the surrounding material. These strata dip here on the left and a bit higher on the right. They likely appeared around 4 billion years ago in a river or a wind-blown dune. Since the strata became visible, powerful Martian winds have eroded them even more. And look at this. See those cracks? That's how rocks weather on the red planet. This small cave probably formed when several fractures crossed the strata. A pretty large boulder might have fallen out under its own weight, and this created the door-shaped opening. This theory is quite plausible, because even though the gravity on Mars isn't as strong as on Earth, it's still strong enough to do it. Besides, see that rock to the right of the opening? It has a suspiciously smooth vertical edge. It must be the culprit. It probably fell out not so long ago. But it's not only the red planet that can boast of having unusual formations. Let's take this comet, for example. This image was taken by the European spacecraft Rosetta in 2014. Can you see a face on its right-hand side? Or the moon. Here's its famous rabbit. It sits upside down with its ears pointing downward. Some people see a man on the moon. It can either be his face or the entire body. If someone sees the whole human figure, it usually looks like it's carrying sticks. Sometimes it's a toad. To spot it, look at the top left-hand side of our moon. The toad is facing upward, see? Now look at this spinning neutron star. Such a star is a collapsed core of a supergiant star with a total mass of 10 to 25 solar masses. Except for black holes and some hypothetical objects, like quark stars or white holes, neutron stars are the densest and smallest known stellar objects. Anyway, back to this particular star. As you can see, this space object, located 17,000 light-years away from Earth, is surrounded by a cloud of energetic particles. And this image, taken by NASA's Chandra X-ray Observatory, appeared in 2009 and became viral in no time. All because many people spotted a hand-like structure among all that space stuff. NASA explained that the star was spinning incredibly fast, spewing energy into the space surrounding it. This created intriguing and complex structures, like the large cosmic hand so many people see. Now look at the Horsehead Nebula in the constellation Orion. This is a freezing cold and dark cloud of dust and gas that was first noted in 1888. This dark shadowing is created by dust, and at the base of the nebula, there are many bright spots. Those are young stars at the stage of formation. Pay attention to this extremely bright star in the top left side of the Horsehead. Its radiation is so powerful that the star is starting to erode the cloud around itself. It means that, in millions of years, the nebula might not resemble the head of a horse anymore. Well, I won't be around then. The European Southern Observatory Very Large Telescope has captured an image in which we can see the collision of 3 different galaxies. We can even observe the effect they have on each other. But the coolest thing is that, while colliding, they created a recognizable shape. Because doesn't it look like a giant space hummingbird? NASA made this cool rover called Curiosity and sent it to Mars to see what else we can find out about the red planet, the one that will possibly become our next home. Curiosity has been exploring the surface of Mars, taking measurements and gathering data about the planet for more than 10 years. And good old Curiosity stumbled upon some interesting wave-rippled rocks in the region of the Martian surface that was kind of expected to be drier. Scientists believe this area was actually a lake bed. It might be the bottom of a dried-up lake and all that sediment and other things that have accumulated there. All this can give us some important clues about the history of the lake. For instance, the types of organisms that might have lived there, how deep the lake was, how long it was there, and similar stuff. These wave-rippled patterns tell us that these rocks may have formed when strong Martian winds were moving the water in this big ancient lake. You know that specific sound you can hear when you're holding a seashell to your ear? You actually hear it because of the way the air gets trapped inside the shell and moves against its walls. The air cannot escape, so it vibrates at frequencies that depend on the size of the shell. In other words, you have a feeling you hear the sound of waves hitting a shore. That's Mars in my imagination now, a spot where you can still hear the long-lost sound of waves crashing against the shores of mysterious gigantic lakes. During its mission, Curiosity also came across a metallic object which turned out to be a meteorite. This unusual rock that came from space is made of nickel and iron. Its name is Cacao, and it's about the size of a small car, 6.5 feet long, and weighs over a ton. This is an important discovery because we don't often find metallic objects on the Martian surface. Most of the rocks there are made of basalt or some other volcanic materials, so that chunk of metal could tell us more about the history of Mars and how it formed. Plus, it definitely stands out. The surface of Mars is red from oxides, while Cacao is metallic-looking and dark gray. It's rounded and smooth, too, which means it once passed through Mars's atmosphere. There have been other robots exploring Mars, too. For instance, NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, MRO, stumbled upon circular sand dunes. Sand dunes are usually very common on the red planet. They come in many different shapes and sizes, but circular ones like these are really rare. They consist of dark sand with light-colored material surrounding them. And the cool thing is that these dunes are arranged in a specific pattern, similar to the spokes of a wheel. It could be because of the way the winds blow. But back to our buddy, Curiosity. It's been exploring many other interesting things, like oxygen levels in the Martian atmosphere. The levels change depending on the season. There's more oxygen in the spring and summer. It's still not clear why, though, and of course, even that is not enough for us to really breathe there. The concentration of oxygen on Mars is 0.1%, which is about 100 times less than the concentration in Earth's atmosphere. The atmosphere of Mars is mostly made up of carbon dioxide, with traces of other gases. Curiosity was so good that it also decided to analyze the age of rocks it found. It seems they're much older than we previously thought. Some of them date back more than 3 billion years. Curiosity found organic molecules in soil samples too. These molecules are basically building blocks of life. Now, this doesn't prove there's indeed life on Mars. It's just one of the things that suggests there might have been some form of life a long time ago. Curiosity discovered potential evidence that there might be a large reservoir of liquid water beneath the south polar ice cap, probably very salty and full of different minerals. This high salinity is the reason why this water could remain liquid at temperatures well below freezing. It would be cool to have some sort of subsurface ocean to take a dip in, especially when these crazy Martian winds are raging on the surface. And it would be great to have something that would protect us from those insane radiation levels on the red planet. There are some pretty toxic chemicals and salts in the Martian soil, which can be really bad for humans. Astronauts could potentially end up being exposed to these toxic chemicals, either through direct contact with the soil or by inhaling dust that contains these salts. Also, these substances could be a problem for growing crops. This is a really big discovery for long-term missions to Mars, because astronauts would need to be able to grow their own food so they can survive while there. Another thing that favors the idea of potential life on Mars is discovering methane there. Methane is a very important finding because usually living organisms produce this gas. So, where did it come from if not from them? In reality, there are a few possible explanations for that. One is the geological activity of underground reservoirs. Another idea is that meteorites brought methane to the red planet. What's interesting is that levels of methane are higher in particular areas. So yeah, I don't know about you, but I'll stick to the theory that it comes from living organisms. Now, it's possible that volcanoes on Mars are still active. We know there are many extinct volcanoes on the red planet, but we've never found enough evidence to prove that some of them are still alive. Scientists studied volcanic deposits and found out that some volcanoes could have erupted maybe 50,000 years ago. Before that, everyone thought the last eruption happened 3 to 4 billion years ago. If you could compress the geological history of Mars into just one day, this would be like having an eruption a second ago. So, you never know. There might still be magma bubbling in secret under the Martian surface. All the future generations that might end up building their life there could really have some fun. Mars turned into a cold and barren place that can't really support life over time. And one of the main reasons for that was losing its atmosphere. The red planet used to have a much thicker atmosphere, similar to Earth's. One major reason for that is its relatively weak magnetic field. Earth's magnetic field helps protect our atmosphere from the solar wind, a stream of charged particles that comes from the sun. Without this protection, Mars had nothing to help it confront this insanely strong force that eventually took away most of its atmosphere. Another factor that played a big role in the loss of Mars's atmosphere is its relatively low gravity. Because Mars has weaker gravity than Earth, it's easier for gas molecules to escape into space. So Mars probably used to be more similar to our home planet. But with its current thin atmosphere, it can't keep any heat, which makes it very cold and very complicated for us to explore. But maybe it's better for us that we didn't visit the red planet back in its old times. There's this story about an ancient megaflood that might have happened there. So yes, the red planet probably used to be a wetter and more hospitable place than it is today, with beautiful flowing rivers and amazing lakes, ponds, and other bodies of water. And some research showed evidence of large channels carved into the planet's surface. These channels are way bigger than any we previously found on the planet. They suggest this megaflood happened billions of years ago. Perhaps it happened as a result of different factors, like volcanic activity, melting ice, and the release of carbon dioxide from the planet's crust. The flood may have created some temporary pools of water, too. Hopefully, it will mean more interesting clues for finding traces of microbial life. How about that?
During the recent years, scientists made 2 breakthrough discoveries about our universe. Thanks to new technologies, we've looked into the distant past. And we've learned something that can change our understanding of the universe forever. What are these discoveries and what do they mean to us? Let's find out. Recently, we unveiled the first color image from the James Webb Space Telescope. It's a mind-bending photo capturing thousands of ancient galaxies. This oldest documented light in the history of the universe dates back over 13 billion years. That's just 600 million years after the Big Bang. It's like getting a sneak peek into the universe's baby album. But that was just the beginning. Astronomers were expecting to see some tiny young galaxies. But what they found was a real surprise. Impossibly early, impossibly massive, and all that from just a tiny red dot. The lead author of the study, Ivo Laba, was working at the computer as usual, and suddenly he got 2 numbers. Age, 13 billion years. Weight, 100 billion stars. When he realized what that meant, he nearly spit out his coffee. But that red dot was just the beginning. The next day they found 5 more galaxies just like this. Turns out, these 6 massive galaxies are as old as the Milky Way itself. The entire research team was in disbelief. They were like, wait, what? These guys couldn't be that mature so early in time. Did we make a mistake? But nope. The James Webb Space Telescope, the new cool guy on the space block, just has some serious skills. It can see through dust clouds with its infrared vision and spot galaxies that were previously invisible. Move over Hubble. There's a new stargazer in town. But why is it shaking things up so much? because this discovery affects our understanding of how galaxies formed. Let's try to explain. A long time ago, 13.8 billion years ago to be precise, our universe was born. It was chilling out for a while, and then it started to form the first galaxies. And these galaxies were full of gas and dust. Eventually, this gas started turning into stars. Some galaxies were more massive and had more stars, and some were lighter and had almost no stars at all. In any case, they all grew gradually. The stars in them were born slowly and smoothly. That's how our current models explain this. But these new observations from the James Webb Space Telescope show an unexpected surprise. Looks like, even in the early universe, our ancient friends had lots of stars. More than what we would ever expect. If that's the case, then these galaxies are like the overachievers of the universe. They skipped the small and gradual growth phase and went straight to being giant universe breakers. According to our current cosmological model, they shouldn't even exist. But they do, so it looks like after the Big Bang, the stars were forming much faster than we thought, which is pretty weird. This could mean that there's something missing in our understanding of the galaxy formation. As you can see, these universe breakers are really living up to their name, causing a potential total consensus among scientists. The universe was like, hey, I'm about to flip cosmology models upside down. But let's not jump to conclusions. There are many theories that could explain these mind-boggling discoveries without breaking the standard model. For example, maybe the light we're seeing isn't coming from stars at all, but from the swirling disks of doom around supermassive black holes. These colossal cosmic beasts can gobble up matter and spit out a dazzling light show. And James Webb Telescope's keen eye is picking up on these enigmatic accretion disks like never before. Or maybe these galaxies could be playing hide-and-seek with us. Maybe there's more to the story that we haven't seen yet. After all, the universe is vast and mysterious, and we've only just begun to scratch the surface. And whoa, we really need to slow down here. Before we even try to explain all this stuff, we need to confirm whether these ancient galaxies really are that old. Although even if they're actually just supermassive black holes, it still shows an astounding change. We'll have to wait about a year to find out. One thing's for sure, the James Webb Space Telescope has definitely taught us a valuable lesson. Expect the unexpected. And this is just the beginning of unexpected. Ivo Laba's team wasn't the only one who made such a huge breakthrough. There's also a team that claims that they've unlocked the secrets of the universe's past, and that's worth 2 Nobel Prizes. Move over James Webb Space Telescope, because this discovery came from an antenna that's smaller than a fridge and costs less than $5 million. Talk about space bargain hunting! The astronomers caught this signal that showed some surprises. It was coming from the earliest stars of our universe, back in the days when they were just beginning to twinkle. Say hi to our celestial ancestors again. Now, the signal was pretty weird. The temperatures were unusually low, and there was a pronounced wave that left astronomers scratching their heads. What could be causing all this? Well, there's a theory. Dark matter may have been at work, and if that's the case, then we can really be on the verge of a great discovery. Imagine you're looking at the night sky filled with stars, but there's something else there that you can't see. It's like an invisible cloak that covers the entire universe. Scientists call this mysterious stuff dark matter. Dark matter is like the ghost of our world. It doesn't emit, absorb, or reflect any light. We can't see it with telescopes or our eyes. That's why we call it dark matter. But if we can't detect it in any way, how do we know it exists? Because of its gravitational pull. One day we noticed that our understanding of how galaxies were created was incorrect. According to our calculations, they should have been some chaotic gas, but something held them together, turning them into spirals, like some kind of invisible glue. Then we thought, maybe this invisible glue really exists. If the moon was invisible, we would still suspect that it exists somewhere because its gravity affects the tides on Earth. This is also the case with dark matter. Its gravity influences the motion of galaxies and other cosmic objects. In fact, dark matter makes up a huge chunk of the universe, about 27% of it. Moreover, the normal matter we can see, like stars, planets, and galaxies, only make up about 5% of the universe. So even though we can't see dark matter, there's actually more of it in the universe than everything we can see. Scientists are still trying to figure out if dark matter exists and what it can be made of. Some theories suggest that it could be made up of exotic particles that are different from the particles that we're used to. Others think that it might be some kind of weird, undiscovered form of matter that doesn't interact with light at all. Anyway, it's an intriguing mystery, and if we ever confirm the existence of dark matter, our understanding of our world will change forever. So now you can understand why the excitement in the scientific community is palpable. If this discovery is confirmed, then we will get the first real proof of dark matter. This discovery may be even more important than the Big Bang itself because, as astronomers put it, we are made of star stuff, and so we are glimpsing at our origin. But of course, we still have to wait and explore all this in great detail. In science, one should never rush to conclusions. And while scientists study this stuff, we'll be here, on the edge of our seats waiting for the next space blockbuster to unfold. The universe never ceases to amaze us with its wonders. Who knew that such a small and humble antenna could unlock such cosmic secrets? It just goes to show that in the vastness of space, even the tiniest discoveries can have the biggest impact. Keep looking up, and who knows what other cosmic surprises are waiting to be uncovered.
These eerie objects are called quasars. They're some of the brightest and most powerful objects in the universe. They lurk in the depths of space, consuming entire galaxies with their insatiable hunger. But what are quasars? Where did they come from? And most importantly, are they dangerous to us? Picture a supermassive black hole, a cosmic monster so massive that it can swallow entire stars and bend the fabric of time. Usually, there's such a black hole in the center of every galaxy. That includes our own Milky Way galaxy. Ours is named Sagittarius A star. Sounds like the name of a hipster coffee shop, but in reality, it's a terrifying celestial body, which is 4 million times heavier than our Sun. You could even see it online. For the first time, we took a photo of this black hole in May 2022. But don't worry. Even though it's supermassive, it's not going to swallow us up anytime soon. This black hole is relatively small, and is too tiny to eat an entire galaxy. So it's more like a cosmic vacuum cleaner that sucks up stars or gas that gets too close. But there are black holes in the centers of galaxies that are way heavier and more dangerous than ours. They can weigh millions or even billions of times more than our own Sun. Now, imagine one of these monsters. Usually they're surrounded by a swirling, glowing disk of gas and dust, like water swirling down a drain. It's called an accretion disk, and it's where the magic of quasars happens. As material from the accretion disk falls toward the center, it heats up to millions of degrees, releasing vast amounts of energy in the form of radiation. And this radiation is what we observe as a quasar. So basically, the more material a black hole can consume from its surroundings, the brighter its quasar will be. This is what makes them so bright and powerful, shining like beacons in the night sky. And just imagine, some black holes can actually make entire galaxies their meal. Now, combine their ravenous appetite with some intense radiation, and you'll get a truly awe-inspiring display of cosmic power. No wonder we can see them, even though they're some of the most distant objects in the universe. Quasars were discovered in the late 1950s by accident. Astronomers were just chilling and looking at the sky when suddenly they stumbled upon something strange. Radio signals that had no visible source. By 1960, hundreds of these strange objects had been found. Astronomers named them quasars, short for quasi-stellar radio source. These objects were small and far away, but their energy output was immense and difficult to explain. Some thought that these were new types of stars. Others even proposed wild things, like quasars being made of antimatter or being the end of a wormhole. But all these theories were discarded. A scientist named Martin Schmidt was the first one to get to the truth. However, many astronomers didn't believe him. Schmidt had to do a lot of extra work and gather lots of evidence to prove his theory. And finally, he prevailed. And that's how we discovered quasars. Don't you love the scientific method? And since then, astronomers have been captivated by these objects. Why? Because they have some pretty eerie qualities. You could call them quasi-quasars. For example, they kind of defy the laws of physics. They emit jets of particles that travel at speeds close to the speed of light. These particles move so fast that they can even distort the very fabric of space and time. But sometimes, they also help us confirm the laws of physics. Now imagine driving a car. As you drive, objects in the rear window start to appear smaller and smaller until they disappear from view entirely. That's exactly what happens with quasars, except they're moving away from us at incredibly fast speeds, up to 90% the speed of light. Wonder why they're trying so hard to sprint away from us. But in any case, this helps us confirm that the universe does expand for real. Another eerie thing about quasars is that they're incredibly old. Some even date back to the time when galaxies were forming, or to the birth of our universe. Additionally, quasars are some of the most distant objects that we can observe in the universe. Some of them are located billions of light years away from us. This means that when we observe a quasar, we're actually seeing light that was emitted billions of years ago, when the Earth was much younger and different than it is today. And that's why they work like cosmic time capsules. Studying them gives us a glimpse into the distant past. You see, galaxies are like giant cities, with stars and planets serving as the inhabitants. But just like cities evolve over time, galaxies also undergo changes as they age. And that's where quasars come in. They're like the urban planners of the universe. They shape the galaxies through their powerful gravitational influence. By eating galaxies and releasing intense radiation, they can trigger star formation and shape the structure of the galaxy itself. It's like the cosmic equivalent of a master chef, or a leaf blower, you pick. For example, let's take galaxy mergers. Here are two massive entities coming together, swirling and spinning around each other. As they get closer and closer, their gravitational pull becomes stronger, and they start to merge into a new, bigger galaxy. It's a beautiful and dramatic process, one that can take millions of years to complete. But all this doesn't go without consequences. The gas and dust within the galaxies collide, creating massive shockwaves that trigger the birth of new stars and even supermassive black holes. And this is where the quasars come into play. Some quasars may be born during these galactic get-togethers, and thanks to this, they help us study the effects of this process and the evolution of galaxies over time. But it's not all serious science and no fun. For example, how about gravitational lensing? Now, that's something straight out of a sci-fi movie. It happens when the gravity of a massive object, like a quasar, bends the path of light from a more distant object, like a galaxy, behind it. It's like having a really big magnifying glass in space. When you combine a quasar with gravitational lensing, you get some seriously awesome cosmic eye candy. The result is kind of like a funhouse mirror, where objects appear warped and twisted in strange and mesmerizing ways. Gravitational lensing isn't just for show. It's also a powerful tool for astronomers to study the distribution of dark matter and the structure of the universe. And that's not all. Some scientists have proposed that quasars could help us build the map of the universe. They can work like giant neon road signs. Turn left at the quasar and you'll reach your destination. They're like lighthouses that help us navigate through space. By analyzing the light from different quasars, astronomers can determine the distances between them and create a 3D map of the universe. And the best part? Quasars are located throughout the entire universe. That's why this cosmic map can give us a comprehensive view of the universe on a scale that was previously unimaginable. Who knew that a giant galaxy eater could be so useful? There's still a lot we don't know about these mysterious objects. In 2007, a team of astronomers made an astonishing discovery: the first true binary quasar. Basically, this means two huge quasars spiraling around each other. What's more, they were hiding in plain sight. For years, scientists had known about this radio source, but had never realized that it actually comes from one lovely couple. The astronomers also estimated that this pair may have a mass of about 100 billion suns. They're super distant, though, at an astounding 12 billion light-years away from our blue planet. Overall, quasars are a fascinating and complex phenomenon that continues to baffle and intrigue scientists. They may be cosmic galaxy eaters, but they're also playing a critical role in the formation and evolution of the universe. And who knows, maybe one day they'll become one of the keys to unlocking the mysteries of our